Happy Saturday once again, everyone. Feels good to be back here for a wingy because we have been gone for the past week because it was Royal Rumble last Saturday, right? So I think it's been 2 weeks since we were up here last for a Saturday podcast. I want to apologize to you guys for going live about 20 minutes later than I had originally intended, but I needed a little bit extra time today. I don't have to work tonight, so there's no reason to rush this podcast, so I gave myself an extra 15 minutes, and now here we are, finally up here to talk about a lot of stuff here. Going to try to bust this out and get this all done by the time Collision airs in a little over 2 hours, but we might run longer than that depending on how long we chit-chat today, because there is a lot going on, a lot to get into. WrestleMania season is here. We are off to the races now, and we're starting to get a pretty good idea of what WWE might have in mind for WrestleMania, and we've got Elimination Chamber coming up, so we're going to be previewing that card and some of the qualifiers that we have seen and that we are about to get on the men's and the women's side. On AEW's side of things, they've got Revolution and Grand Slam coming up, and a pretty big Dynamite this week with Brody King absolutely demolishing MJF in that Eliminator, so that was pretty good. We'll talk all about that. We'll talk about last night's SmackDown. Rough night for Drew McIntyre. Could not get that promo out for the life of him. Kept getting attacked, but he did give receipts to Punk and Roman. We'll get into that. A lot of wrestling news to get into as well. We're going to talk about the latest with AJ Styles. As a matter of fact, we're going to open up with that. We're also going to talk about the likely retirement of Big E, who reiterated this week that he is probably done with his in-ring pro wrestling career, which is pretty sad. We're going to talk about MJF and Seth Rollins meeting up at the Super Bowl Media Week this week in the Bay Area. We got some heat on Ricochet for his WWE tweets. We're going to talk about that Hangman Page and Marty Scurll photo that I never got a chance to talk about because we haven't been here for a podcast in a couple of weeks, so we'll get into that a little bit. Also, we'll talk about some news on the Iconics/Inspiration. We've got Joe Hendry as your new NXT champion, and word is Bad Bunny could be heading back to the WWE pretty soon as well for Mania season. So we'll talk about that. We'll preview this Monday's Raw. We have some elimination qualifiers, elimination chamber qualifiers coming up on Monday, plus a big match on Friday's SmackDown next week, a big Elimination Chamber qualifier with the 3 participants being very interesting. Makes you wonder if we really are going to get that multi-man match that I have been suspecting we're going to get for Drew McIntyre's title. That's the way it's feeling like to me right now, but we still got to discuss SmackDown first. We'll get into all that and what Aldis said to Cody and what that match is going to be for next week and what the odds could be in terms of who wins that one. So lots of news surrounding both companies, 2 big pay-per-views coming up for WWE, actually 4 big shows in total because AEW's got Grand Slam and Revolution, and WWE's got Chamber and Mania. So a lot going on, pretty exciting time, and we're going to be getting into all of it this afternoon. So thanks again for being here, everyone. Happy Saturday to you. Hopefully you're having a great day. Happy Super Bowl weekend. Let me know who you got there in the chat for tomorrow. I don't really care, to be honest, but I remember watching the Seahawks and the Patriots from, 10 years or so ago when the Seahawks basically had the game won and they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. I would like to see them get that victory back. Don't really care much about the Patriots, but I do think it's kind of cool that they made it all the way back to the Super Bowl just a short time after Brady and that dynasty had ended. Usually the rebuilding process is much longer than that for those type of teams. So the fact that they're back in there, kind of a cool story. So I guess tomorrow I don't really care, but maybe my heart is with the Seahawks a little bit. So let me know who you got for tomorrow. And unfortunately, that means no classic watch-along tomorrow. Sundays are the days that we come up here and watch pay-per-views or watch matches together on the WWE Vault channel, but it's Super Bowl and we won't be here tomorrow. So I will possibly be here Monday for Raw again. We'll do a Raw review on Monday because we do have some qualifiers coming up. Raw might be interesting, so plan on seeing me on Monday night. That way I'm not making you guys wait a week until you see me again. So we'll be back next week for the podcast, and then we'll get back to our normal watch-along schedule next Sunday as well. And I'll start putting links up for everything else we're going to do this month in terms of Grand Slam reviews and chamber reviews and all that stuff. I'll be working on that this month. So anyway, that's kind of what's on tap today, and that's what's on tap for the weekend. No watch along tomorrow. We will be here for a Raw review, and I'm working on some Mania season videos like I do every year to be pumping out over the next few weeks between now and WrestleMania on the channel. Most of those are going to be YouTube shorts, top fives, things like that I'm busting out and starting to work on now for Mania season, because I always like to provide a little bit of extra content here on the channel for Mania season, and we'll probably do a couple of special watch-alongs, maybe on a random night, not a Sunday night during Mania season, some fun matches or just Mania-related shit is what we'll be doing between now and April 18th and 19th, which I believe are the dates of WrestleMania. So anyway, that's kind of what's on tap for the rest of the week and upcoming. Now I'll just say hello real quick to everybody in the chat, and we will jump into the news. And I want to start out with the man on the screen right there, AJ Styles, as he was a guest on Stephanie McMahon's podcast this week. And he did talk about whether or not he was retired. So we will get into that first. Before we do, I just want to thank everybody for being here. Sorry about coming up a little bit late. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button if you don't mind. If you're not a subscriber, please become one. Memberships are open, so are super chats. We'll get into all of those today, and I hope you guys are having a great one. Let me just say hello to Harry Rice Hockey. We got Rodrigo, we got Melissa, Tatanani's here, Mike Rouse, handsome Steve Jacobson. That makes two of us. We've got Colin Wright. Good to see you. Ryan is here as well. Right. Chaz Medeiros, good to see you. Ricky Zalvadar, Ben Espinoza, Sport in Things shows. What's up? David Brown is here. Jake, the original tribal chief, is in the house. We got Giolish is here as well. I hate these handles. I wish YouTube would get back to the old names the way they used to do it. Good to see Denny Downbad. We got Shell Shock Sonic Plays is in the house as well. Stephen Harris and Isaac. Anybody else saying hello? Good to see you. Thank you for being here. You guys got the Seahawks, $50 on the Seahawks, huh? Yeah, Niners fan, you're probably not going to be rooting for the Seahawks. That tends to be the case. If you're in the same division, if your favorite team is in the same division as a team in the Super Bowl, you're probably going to be rooting against them in most cases. It was never like that for me growing up because the Lions always sucked. But I remember the years that Green Bay won, like with Brett Favre. I was rooting for them those years. I don't know. Brett Favre's a piece of shit. But back then in the 90s, I was fine with him. And I remember rooting for him. But I was a Lions fan. That is kind of weird. But the Lions sucked, and division rivalries didn't really matter to me. Good to see the Pistons doing good. Probably my all-time favorite sports franchise of all time. Grew up watching the Bad Boys. And good to see them with the second best record in the league and number one in the East. Holy shit. The Pistons are good. What's going on there? Feel free to fill me in the chat. Anyway, we're not here to talk about basketball. We're here to talk about wrestling. So let's start off with our wrestling news. And I want to kick things off with AJ Styles because as we saw 1 week ago at the Royal Rumble, we were here to watch it. AJ Styles did, in fact, lose to Gunther, and that was supposed to be, or is supposed to be, his retirement match. Now, after the match, AJ did the deal in the ring where he stood there and he began to Velcro or undo his gloves, and he was going to go put them down in the ring, and at the last minute, he lifted them back up. Well, this week he was a guest on Stephanie McMahon's podcast. I got to be honest, guys, I do not listen or watch any of these WWE-produced podcasts. I'll watch clips of them. Certainly, there's some interesting things said here and there, but I just don't like them. So I certainly don't want to listen to The Undertaker's one. I'll listen to a little bit of Cody's. I've seen some clips of Stephanie's, but that's about where I draw the line. I don't give a shit about anything else. But AJ Styles being a guest on Stephanie McMahon's podcast is interesting because of what the speculation surrounding his career and retirement has been. And a lot of fans, myself included, last week at the Rumble took that glove thing as a message from AJ saying he's not done yet. Now, I didn't listen to very much of the podcast, but I did listen to the part where Stephanie specifically asks him about the gloves. Now, he had talked a lot about his personal life, about his wrestling career. Stephanie was very gracious and a very kind host to him, and you could really tell how much AJ Styles, number one, loves his family, and most importantly, loves his wife. And I thought all that was great. Even saying that I guess his second oldest son is starting to get into wrestling a little bit. And when he even talked about maybe wanting to tag team with him one day. So regarding the gloves, when Stephanie pressed him on that, he basically just said, like, never say never on wrestling again. So he's retired, but never say never, wink, wink type of thing, right? Right after the Royal Rumble, when myself and probably every other reviewer was online saying, hey, I feel like AJ is going to wrestle again. You had people like Rosenberg. I think he said on the post show, I talked to AJ and Michael Cole talked to AJ and he reiterated that this is his last match or something like that. But I'm like, who the fuck is listening to Rosenberg for starters? So I didn't take that with any seriousness whatsoever because I was like, well, if this really was it, if AJ Styles was 100% retiring and he was never going to wrestle again, those gloves would have stayed in the ring. It was just so obvious that, he's not fully done wrestling. That was the belief. That was the understanding that many of us wrestling fans were under. 1 second, I'm going to just adjust. There we go. Just did a little bit of a lighting adjustment there because the sun was shining and I could kind of see it in my eyes there. So the speculation and how the fans perceived what AJ Styles did at the Rumble, I don't think was really that, I don't know, wasn't that rare. I think we all kind of took that the same way. Most fans weren't looking at what AJ Styles did and at the end of that saying, oh, he's 100% retired. No, it looked to us like that was him saying, I ain't done yet, bitches. So he basically said, never say never. But you have to wonder, too, like him even being on Stephanie McMahon's podcast. A lot of people took that as a sign that, hey, AJ might wrestle somewhere else, but one place it's not going to be is AEW because there have been some rumblings of AJ going to AEW. And as much as I would love that, as much as I would kill for an AJ Styles versus Will Ospreay all-in match, my God, as wonderful as that would be, I have had a hard time believing that he would go to AEW because of his own words saying that he was going to be done with his in-ring career in 2026. Now, even the WWE announcers were referencing the fact that he wanted to have a full-year retirement tour, kind of like John Cena. So if that's still his plan and he wants to wrap everything up in 2026, I don't know why he would even go to AEW, because if he did, it would have to be an incredibly short deal. He would have to sign a contract that's less than a year. They would have to be, Tony Khan would have to be okay with signing this guy to a contract for less than a year, assuming he's just going to come in, work a couple of matches, and then what? Go back to WWE to be a producer or to be a coach or work in NXT or something like that, which is something we all felt he could do. I don't know if AEW is where he would go. So, AEW, I'm sure, would love to have him, but how would it benefit them? I mean, aside from having an AJ Styles match on their pay-per-view, to pull a big number or sell tickets or whatever, in the moment you would probably do great. But in the long term, you're talking about a WWE star, who just spent the last 10 years there, wrapped up his career there, comes into you for a stint, and then immediately just leaves, just passes right through your doors, and then right back to WWE to go into the Hall of Fame. Or take a non-wrestling job with the company. So it would feel weird if AJ has aspirations of maybe working for or with WWE in a non-wrestling capacity in the future. It seems weird that he would stop by AEW first. With kind of the bad blood with the man. Wrestlers all support each other and whatnot. We'll talk about that later. But in terms of the WWE and AEW relationship, it's not like they are in the business of doing one another a lot of favors. So, I feel like both companies are always going to look at a situation like that, like how does it benefit me? And Tony Khan will get some good numbers and some good reaction from whatever pay-per-view AJ competes on. But that's going to be it. That's going to be the end of the investment. So, it would have to be this. What I'm hoping is that AJ Styles is such a legend and a star of his caliber. I'm hoping that every wrestling company would just open up their doors to him. Forget about competition or any of this stuff. None of that matters when it comes to someone like him. We put all that aside. And if this is the way this legend wants to go out, if this is how he wants to end his career, he doesn't want to end it in a WWE ring. He wants to go around and wrestle a bunch of different people in a bunch of different locker rooms all around the world and then retire at the end of the year. I don't think WWE, AEW, TNA, New Japan, nobody should stand in his way. Everybody should welcome him with open arms. So if he is going to go to AEW, that I still have my doubts about that, but let's say that he is. That's pretty incredible that, is he just stringing WWE along for this, because we don't know when his contract is actually up. Is he just telling WWE one thing and then the minute his contract is up, he's going to go sign and pop back out on Dynamite? Like I said, that's something that I will believe when I see. I feel like TNA is the more likely non-WWE wrestling home for AJ Styles because of all of his history there. And a lot of people are pointing out that why can't it be both? It can be. I would love for him to hit up TNA, hit up AEW, hit up New Japan. I mean, if AJ Styles has a match in AEW, that means he will have wrestled for WWE, WCW, Ring of Honor, AEW, and TNA. The only thing missing is ECW because I don't think AJ ever worked a spot there. So that's pretty crazy. I don't know how many other names in wrestling have those 5 promotions on their list. Maybe Dustin Rhodes? Probably Dustin Rhodes? I don't know. Was Dustin in TNA? I feel like Dustin had to have gone through TNA. He had to have popped up there at some point, right? So maybe Dustin, but I can't think of too many other names that would be able to say that. Not even the Hardys can say that. So that would be kind of cool if that was like a personal goal of AJ Styles. Hey, since I've been in WWE, this other wrestling company has shown up. They're now the number 2 company in the world. Why wouldn't I want to at least have a match there? I guess that's all up to Tony Khan and AJ and even WWE. They're not stupid either. You got to think Triple H is like, hey, AJ, we love you. We support you in whatever you do. Just don't go to those other guys. TNA is fine. Hell, New Japan is fine. You want to go to Mexico? Cool. We got your back. Just don't go there. But, if he's AJ, if I'm AJ, I'm like, man, I'm going to go do what I want. I'm not going to be worried about hurting your feelings. This is my career we're talking about here. I had a long career. I had a 20-year career before I even got to your asses. So you are not going to tell me where I can and cannot go. But at the same time, WWE has also been very good to him. It's one of the most pleasantly surprising things that WWE has ever done is their treatment of AJ Styles. Because I doubted, a lot of fans doubted, before he even came into the company, that if he ever showed up there, Vince wouldn't push him. They wouldn't recognize him for the athlete that he is, how he was widely considered before he even came to WWE as the best in-ring wrestler in the world. So coming in with that reputation sometimes can be a detriment to your career when you're in WWE because of all the pettiness and high school nature of the place. And when you come in with that aura or that reputation, the company's going to do everything they can to prove that that's not true. I feel like CM Punk went through that when he came in 2006. So I had my doubts about AJ Styles even doing anything if he did come into WWE. Then he shows up at the Royal Rumble 2016, one of the biggest pops we've ever heard in our lives, and within 8 months, that motherfucker's WWE champion, and then would have another run that would last a year. So that right there, I always thought was really surprising, and I always gave WWE and reluctantly even Vince McMahon credit for saying, you know what, you proved me wrong, because I did not think you guys had that in you. To take someone that made the majority of their career and reputation outside of your company, to bring that person in with their name intact. You didn't try to change him up or give him a WWE name or, call him Biff Webster or something like that. You just brought him in as AJ Styles. You showcased him. He did well. He earned their trust almost immediately, and he made them champion and became one of the most decorated stars they had and a bona fide main eventer. And he's the guy that has The Undertaker's last match. The Undertaker's final match came against AJ Styles. He has that on his resume. So, with all of that said, AJ Styles, on one hand, I want him to tell WWE, you can't tell me what I'm going to do. I'm going to go do what the fuck I want. You also have to understand that WWE was pretty good to him. So, if I'm AJ, I'm recognizing that as well. That, hey, this company was very good to me. It might be in my best interest not to piss them off, because they've treated me well. They've treated me with nothing but respect Right after I retire, the former owner's daughter is inviting me on his podcast. I'm a first ballot Hall of Famer. All this stuff I know. Am I going to burn a bridge, so to speak, if I go to AEW? I would like to say no. I don't think WWE's petty, but they're not petty. We already have couples that are separated by these two companies. We have husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends in different companies. If AJ had a personal or professional goal of saying, hey, I just want to have a match in that ring, man. Just let me have a match in that ring. Triple H and everybody else there has got to be like, even if they don't like it, they got to respect it. Sure. Go do what you got to do, AJ. I would just like to think that would be their reaction, and there isn't this, there doesn't have to be any deception. Like AJ doesn't have to feel like he's got to string them along, and just play dumb. I don't know if I'm going to retire or not, man. I don't know. And then the minute his contract is up, boom. He pulled like the Ava thing. As soon as the minute Ava's contract was up, fuck ICE, she put on social media. Literally the second that she felt that she wouldn't have any repercussions. And the minute she was contractually able to speak her mind, she did. So I'm curious if AJ might do the same thing, but, do you really want, I don't think there's either side wants to deceive the other. I don't think AJ Styles wants to just blatantly lie to them or string them along. But if he does want to do these things, he doesn't want any pressure from them to not do it. So he might just have to say what he's going to say. So time will tell. We will see. I don't personally need to see AJ Styles in AEW. I think it would be awesome if he was there, because already, you're thinking about that match with Will Ospreay and how amazingly special that could be, and all of the other things that AJ could do in AEW with some of his other friends there, like the Bucks and others. There are things for him to do and plenty of stuff he could do in 2026, but that's the type of thing where I'm going to believe it when I see it. What I'm not unsure about is if he's going to wrestle again. I am convinced he's going to. He has to. He cannot end his career in Saudi fucking Arabia. Can you imagine if he has his final match in Saudi Arabia and then they put him in the Hall of Fame next year? Where's the Hall of Fame going to be? In Saudi Arabia. So I don't like that idea. I would love for AJ Styles to have his final match in a TNA ring, to be honest. I feel like that's where it should be. That's where his whole career was. That's where he found the most amount of his success. And that, might be a full circle type of closure moment for him. But, if he does do something with AEW, that would also put him back in a Ring of Honor ring as well, to maybe do something there. So it's all up to him, I guess. And like I said, we don't know about his contract or when exactly it's up. He did this interview with Stephanie, after February 1st, and I thought maybe his contract was up on February 1st, so maybe it's up mid-February. We don't know, or maybe it's up and he just sat down with Stephanie anyway. We don't know anything yet. Here is what WrestleVotes Radio on Fightful Select said about this week. I think a couple of days ago they posted this report, and I quote, AJ Styles is done as an active wrestler, but he might not be done completely. Fightful reported this week that not many in the industry, in WWE or AEW, know what Styles' next move is. There was a little bit more speculation. WrestleVotes on Fightful Select noted that sources they spoke to within WWE believe that AJ is not done wrestling in some capacity, and there was no further clarification on his future. Styles left things as a never say never on Stephanie's podcast, and word, I guess, basically, there was a couple different reports that said more or less the same thing. The belief in the industry, if you're asking people in WWE, if you're asking people in AEW, if you're asking people who know AJ Styles, or you're just asking random people what they think, the belief is that he is not done wrestling. He will be back in some capacity, and I don't think we're going to have to wait very long, because they were making it clear that he wanted 2026 to be his final year, and that he wanted to have a retirement run. So I don't think we're going to have to sit here for too many weeks wondering what AJ Styles is going to do, because he doesn't, if he's only going to be wrestling this year, he can't sit around for 8 months and decide, because the year will be over. So he's probably going to just wait until that WWE contract is officially expired, which I have not seen any dates on that. If any of you have, please let me know. But I think we'll learn something as soon as his contract is up. But I don't think he's going to be contacting AEW or anything like that until then. And then if he decides to go with TNA, that's just much easier, because that's already WWE adjacent, and he can just show up there and everybody would love it. And like I said, if TNA is able to number one, we've talked about this before, if they can book an AJ Styles title match for a pay-per-view and then book an AJ Styles retirement match for a pay-per-view, that will set TNA records. That company is 25 years old, and the largest crowd they've ever drawn is, what, 7,700? This is the new number 2 promotion, right? Fuck you. The hell they are. Not even close. But they will set all kinds of records for AJ's. If they give him a title match, if AJ Styles receives a TNA World Championship match on pay-per-view, I fully believe they can draw 10,000 fans for that. Maybe more, but 10 sounds reasonable. And I think they will draw the same, if not more, for a retirement match. And so, win-win. AJ Styles goes out, he retires, and on his way out, he is helping the company that, was his home for so many years. So that would be a nice way to close it up, but also showing up in a New Japan ring would be fun. Showing up in an AEW ring would be fun. We'll just have to wait and see. But it feels like we said ever since last week, when those gloves did not touch the mat, that tells me he's wrestling again. So we will see where he lands. I hope it is AEW, but like I said, I got to see that first. I'll believe it when I see it. In some news that's not really big news, we kind of already knew this. It's been several years now, I think 4 years since Big E was injured in that suplex from Ridge Holland on SmackDown that injured his neck and pretty much ended his pro wrestling career. We were all very hopeful over the past couple of years after he has had his surgery, and he was reporting, very positive progress on that. And there's been a couple of Royal Rumbles where we were really hoping to see him. They went through the whole thing of the New Day heel turn, which is still to this day one of the saddest promos or in the ring I've ever seen. Just how there was no payoff there. They just humiliated, insulted Big E, and that was it. I mean, props to them. Xavier Woods still keeping the work alive. When Big E, I'm about to read a tweet from him from the other day, basically reiterating his retirement, and Xavier quote tweets it and just goes, ha, 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 ha. Fucking, so cold. But Big E did an interview recently where he kind of reiterated his retirement. That got the chatter going again. And that, I guess, prompted him to post the following statement on social media, which I think he posted yesterday or the day before. And here's what he had to say. I entered the pro wrestling industry at age 23 with an injury history that included a torn left ACL, torn right ACL, torn left pec, and a broken right patella. At 39, I'm well aware that I will one day have to pay the piper. I've put my body through a lot, and somehow I feel great. I don't battle daily pain. I'm able to function normally and healthfully. I'm eternally grateful for the wonderful career I stumbled into. I pray for all of my fellow athletes and performers who have not had the same good fortune. A sincere thank you to everyone who has taken the time to follow my in-ring career. It was an immeasurable gift to get to perform for all of you. So, in the last 4 years, Big E has made similar statements. And one thing that is consistent in all those statements is how grateful he says that he is. And he's mentioned a few times how he's not battling daily pain. I mean, when you end your career as early as he had, he's not going to be walking around like a hunchback fucking ogre, the way Hogan did from the 10,000 leg drops, and all the hip damage and the bones and the joints and all the damage that just wrestlers put their body through and how that affects them as they are older. Big E isn't going to have to live with too much of that since he's been out of the ring since he was 35. So every time this is brought up, he constantly mentions how grateful that he is that he had the career and how he doesn't, at least outwardly, I'm sure internally there's some feelings going on, but he doesn't really seem to have any regrets. He doesn't hold any grudges whatsoever. Of course, every time Big E's retirement is brought up, Ridge Holland gets a ton of hate online, so his name was trending again, people yelling at him, just be adults, please. What the fuck? Accidents happen. Pro wrestling is a very dangerous line of work. Nobody is happy about what happened to Big E, but Big E doesn't blame Ridge Holland any more than Droz didn't blame D'Lo. Do you hate D'Lo Brown? Most people probably have fond memories of him from the Attitude Era. These are the same people that want Ridge Holland to die. Come on, it's an accident. The most famous wrestler in the world was nearly paralyzed by one of the nicest wrestlers in the world, Owen Hart, just taken way too soon. The tragedy of Over the Edge just a couple of years before then, he was the center of a major controversy. He pile drove Austin irresponsibly and nearly paralyzed him and nearly put a whole end into the entire WWE. Imagine if Austin would have been paralyzed that night and we had no Austin for 98. We had no Austin McMahon. WCW would have won that war. Owen Hart almost killed WWE, but we loved Owen. It's an accident. Accidents happened, and fans have no reference, frame of reference on anything, and I think a lot of the hate and everything directed at Ridge Holland is extremely uncool. It just sucks, none of us like it. Big E was one of the best, most fun pro wrestlers we've ever had. He's the guy that does everything right. He's exactly who you want to be, how he carries himself inside, outside the ring. He's the exact last person you would want to see this happen to. But, you get what you get in life, and you just can't, nothing you can do about it. And it's all about how you handle it. And I think if it was me or if it was one of you and we had something that we loved so much taken away from us, we might not handle it as well as Big E. So just the way he handles it just speaks volumes about his character, what kind of person he is. And I've always had a really, really deep admiration for that. And it's something I've mentioned for the last 4 years. I mean, even right off the bat, even right when this happened, Big E was like, I blame no one. It's an accident. I'm going to try to get back. It's all good. Just handled everything with unrelenting positivity throughout the entire ordeal, and not many people are as mature as that, might hold grudges or whatever. And if he does, like I said, he's doing that all internally and he's putting on a brave face externally. But I don't think he's really acting. I think that's really the way he feels. And Big E is just a great guy. And we're not done seeing him. He's got plenty of things to do. It sucks we're not going to see him in the ring anymore, at least most likely. I will say with Big E, though, just like everybody else, never say never. We never thought we'd see Austin. We never thought we'd see Edge. And these are a lot of people that we saw again. And I think every single Royal Rumble, even when Big E reiterates his retirement, every Royal Rumble, I'm going to be waiting and hoping that one of those numbers will be him one day. And I'm telling you, if we ever see that, I predict right now that will be an even more emotional return than Edge's was. And Edge's was one of the most emotional things I've ever seen in pro wrestling. I think Big E will outdo that if one day he comes back. And if he does, I just want it to be in the Rumble. I want it to be completely out of nowhere. I don't want his name to be on anybody's radar. And then out he comes. And you just get an audience just collectively shitting themselves. That would just be wonderful. It would just be a wonderful moment for all of wrestling. And I think wrestlers and fans across the entire landscape, no matter what fan of a company you are or what company you work for, everybody, is going to be cutting onions that day when that happens. All the best to Big E in whatever your future may hold. One of the best human beings that wrestling has ever had. I don't think wrestling really deserves Big E, to be honest. So all the best to the big man. Here's some more, not some more, but here's something fun. MJF and Seth Rollins, they met up at Super Bowl Radio Row in the Bay Area. I guess it's Super Bowl Media Week all week up there, and a lot of celebrities and personalities were in town doing stuff for it, and they were both there and both present, and they had a little meetup, a little stare down there. They teased a match. It was a very, very friendly interaction. They shook hands and hugged, and Seth Rollins goes, someone's going to be mad. Nobody in AEW would be mad. No AEW management isn't going to give a fuck. But WWE, he knows that the company that he worked, somebody's going to be mad. Fuck them. This is, it's so cool to see this stuff. It reminds me of like back in the day, back before social media. There are some pictures that exist of WWE and WCW guys meeting. And I always thought that was like so fascinating back then. There's that one famous picture of, I don't even know where they were. All I know is I think it was 1996. And they were outside of some arena. I have no clue where they were. Still to this day, I don't know where this picture was taken. But it's got WWF and WCW guys outside together. Austin is there in a tank top. Davey Boy is there. Billy Gunn is there. So there's some WWE guys. But then you see the Giant. You see Hogan. You see Savage. I forgot who else is out there. But it's basically just a mixture of WWE and WWF, WCW and WWF guys who had gotten together somewhere, and a photo was taken of all of them, and it was really cool. It was always a fascinating picture to me. I remember in the year 2000, Goldberg met The Rock. They were at a convention somewhere, and that was where their friendship began. And as we remember, 3 years later, Goldberg would come into the WWE, and he would beat The Rock on The Rock's way out the door after WrestleMania 19. So Goldberg and The Rock met up in the year 2000. And, prior to that, Goldberg was like calling out Austin on The Tonight Show and stuff, right? But that never came to be. But then Goldberg and The Rock actually met in person and got along and hit it off. Goldberg and Triple H also had an interaction that didn't go so well at a convention. I don't remember what year that was. I'd probably say 99 or something like that. And Triple H flipped him off. It was some sort of heated little confrontation there between the two of them. At Owen Hart's funeral, there's the video of Vince McMahon shaking hands with Hulk Hogan. Their first time meeting in quite a while. That was all very cool looking to me. So this little interaction here with MJF and Seth Rollins kind of reminded me of that. And it also kind of is another good illustration because a lot of fans don't understand real life. They only understand their bubble in Virgin Land and just obsessing about tribalism and things like that. The wrestlers are all supportive of one another. There was people very, very happy to see Powerhouse Hobbs show up at the Royal Rumble. There was people in WWE happy to see Ciampa win the TNT title. I remember AEW wrestlers marking out on Twitter when Cody Rhodes debuted at WrestleMania. This is all this community of wrestlers who interchange and jump ship. They all work together. They all have histories. They all have friendships, relationships from the past. And it doesn't matter what company you work in. If you have any issues with each other, it's never going to be because of who you work for. It's going to be because personal stuff. If there's heat between wrestlers, it's not because one works for WWE and one works for AEW. No, it's because there's something personal between them. CM Punk and Jack Perry don't like each other, not because they're in separate companies, because there was that drama over the glass. So if there is bad feelings, it's usually not because of where you work. The only person that might be making it that way is Ricochet, which we'll talk about in a minute. But in terms of this interaction, this was fun. Love to see this type of shit, especially between two of the top stars. This is the AEW World Champion, and had he not gotten hurt, this man, Seth Rollins, would be the WWE World Champion. So you would have had the two world champions hanging out here. Well, maybe Rollins wouldn't even be there because he wouldn't be hurt. He'd be on the road. It might be somebody else. Might have been Punk there to see MJF. And MJF did an interview here at the same convention. He was asked about CM Punk, and he goes, "Who gives a shit? I'd love to slap his stupid face again," or something like that. So they all just play along. It's great. I enjoyed that. And it was just fun to see MJF and Seth Rollins kind of hanging out because that's a match that is not guaranteed to never happen. I think there's a good chance we may actually see that one day in the future, hopefully. But there's also a pretty good chance that we won't. So Rollins and MJF hanging out, pretty fun stuff. He should have told him to say hi to Mox for me. So that was a nice interaction between WWE and AEW. Ricochet this week apparently has been getting some heat because Ricochet's very vocal on social media, very vocal on Twitter. I love him on Twitter for the most part because he engages with the trolls. He doesn't give a shit about these little nameless and faceless boys. He's talking about it. He doesn't fucking care. So he just will engage with them and mess with them and kind of troll them back. And sometimes he can get a little bit too much. Sometimes he can, venture a little bit too far into like Andrew Tate land. I'm like, okay, let's not be too much of a douche here. There are limits to the doucheness level that I will accept from a man. And Ricochet does tread that line. But he maybe, he's still relatively young. I don't know if he wants to be burning these bridges with WWE like this, but he has been talking a lot about WWE since joining AEW and talking about why he left and why he doesn't like it there. And of course, Samantha Irvin left WWE as well. And she has recently even said that she has no plans on going back there. So the two of them don't want anything to do with WWE anymore, which is fine. Totally fine. Totally understandable. Totally understandable. But Ricochet is awfully vocal about that online. And most of the time, I don't even care at all. I think it's kind of funny when he agitates the trolls and they just slobber on themselves and they get so upset because, number one, they have no life, and number two, they're getting owned by Ricochet, and that's just a bad 1-2 punch there. So he always messes with them, and they always get all butthurt about it. Well, I don't know how what sparked the first the comment here, but the first one that really began the tweeting spree from Ricochet was when he was tweeting in regards to WWE. I believe this was in response to some fan, because a lot of his tweets are responses. And this is what he said about WWE, and I quote, "They took my love for pro wrestling away. I'll never forget how I felt walking into work every week, and that platform was only to make others look good at my expense. I told them I'd rather quit and go back to the indies and make whatever I'd make there than come back next week." So, and these are some things that he said before, and we've heard this from talent from both promotions, and we heard this back in the day as well. So WWE and WCW had the same type of chatter, and now we're seeing the same thing from WWE and AEW. We've seen it on both sides. We've seen people leave AEW and go to WWE who had miserable experiences there. We all know what happened to CM Punk. Rusev and Aleister Black didn't really work out. They wanted out of there. Andrade wanted out, but now he's back. So we've seen some people in AEW who have left, did not like that atmosphere or did not like their time there for whatever reason. Cody Rhodes famously made the big jump because whatever happened there, he felt disrespected. Probably had something to do with Brandy, and he'll write a book and tell all that story one day. So we've seen that happen. We've also seen WWE. WWE can be a very, formulaic type of corporate individuality stripping type of machine that we've seen that before. When you're brought in, you are just handcuffed and you're just turned into this fucking drone. You're given a stupid name and all these stupid fucking rules, and you're not able to be artistically creative the way you want to be. And that's important to some people who are artists inside the ring. You have some other ones that are say, I just want the exposure or whatever. It just depends on kind of what your wrestling style is, what your personal, goals are, aspirations, or anything like that. And Ricochet is an in-ring performer, and a WWE system usually won't be too kind to wrestlers like that. And a lot of times you can just be spinning your wheels and not really going anywhere and putting mileage and wear and tear on your body when you could be being more creatively satisfied elsewhere. So in Ricochet's case, it was better for him to go to AEW. And I think there are definitely situations on both sides where you can look at a talent and say, you know what, he'd be better off in WWE, or she would be better off in WWE. And then there's another side where you say, you should go to AEW. WWE is not going to do anything with you. It just depends. That's what's cool about having two companies that do have kind of different philosophies in how they do things and how they operate business. And if you are somebody that really, really loves the art of good in-ring pro wrestling, you are just way too handcuffed by 6-minute matches and TV times and commercials and all that stuff in WWE, where going elsewhere could be a better choice for you. So in Ricochet's case, AEW was better for him. Doesn't mean AEW is better for everybody, just means AEW is better for Ricochet. But when he tweets, and I do believe AEW is better for Ricochet, but his tweets, I think, are a little bit too broad. And when you're bringing up people individually, that's where I think you're making a mistake. In his next tweet, when he was, still going from the previous one, his next tweet says, "Same thing happens to Balor, Shinsuke, Apollo, and many others. WWE kills legacies and love of the sport. It's what they do best." Whether he's right or wrong, if I'm Balor or Nakamura or Apollo, I don't appreciate my name being brought up in that. Even if I feel that way, I'm like, bro. Or maybe I don't feel that way, and now I'm mad. Don't speak for me, dude. Don't put my name out there when it's not something that I even believe, so that wasn't cool. His next tweet said, I do feel this way, and many others do as well. That company kills the love, and you end up being a shell of who you were and going through the motions. That is very true. We have heard that plenty of times. The WWE system really does kind of make you a shell of who you are. All the work you did in the indies, all the things you did to get to this point, you're now almost no longer allowed to do. WWE has a style. There is a style to WWE's matches, where AEW is more of a let it all hang out place. WWE's got a very, rigid style of how they like their matches structured and some of the things they like to do in the matches and whatnot. So it's a very, very, controlled in-ring environment. And if you want to really let your skills shine, maybe that environment, or your in-ring skills, I should say, that environment might not be best for you. So I don't think it was cool for Ricochet to be bringing up other names, because all that's not going to bring anything positive to this. I'm not even, I'm pro Ricochet. I like Ricochet, but these are the type of things I'm like, I don't know, dude. I would not be bringing up other people's names in another company. And apparently he has gotten a little bit of heat for that, and a little bit of heat for those criticisms. So in terms of Ricochet trolling a bunch of virgins online, I don't care. Everybody that's all up his ass have absolutely nothing to live for in their lives. We've seen these people on social media. They're nameless, they're faceless, they have 2 followers, and their timelines are just loaded with hate and ignorance and stupidity. So if Ricochet wants to troll dipshits like that, I'm all for it, but I might not be bringing up specific names from people in our competitor, who's wrestling in our competitor, because that could bring you some heat. So, Ricochet doesn't have much of a filter on social media. Like I said, 90% of the time I got no problem with it. But I would maybe draw the line there. I haven't even checked. Are these tweets still up? I think he's deleted most of them by now. But he did get a little bit of heat for that. But, I think it's today, actually. It's today or tomorrow. Today or tomorrow is the 16-year anniversary of me leaving my North Carolina job. I was there about 10 years, and I had a very, very demanding boss. And even though I learned most of what I knew, and part of the reason why I have the job and the success that I have now is because of what I learned there. But it was a very, very unpleasant 10 years in terms of who my boss was, what was demanded of me, the hard work that I did with very little acknowledgement, and how that place really sucked out your soul. Now, I learned a ton, but I never felt like my hard work was appreciated. And I never got a what you did right. It's always what you did wrong. Kind of very stressful atmosphere, because the person I worked for was a genius. He was a very, very smart restaurateur who knew his shit. I was working for the top man in the city, and I became one of his lieutenants. I became his right-hand man, but that job brought a lot of stress and a lot of unhappiness. And I've never in my life been depressed, but the closest I've ever come to being depressed was during that job. And when I got here to California, and I got, I've had my same job for the last 15 years, and I found this, kind of like dream job, this very, very easy job that is so stress-free. I thought it was going to be short-term. It was going to be my decompression, my summer of Greg, my summer of George, decompression, just to get away, just to deprogram myself from that horrible job. 16 years later, I still have some bad feelings about that job. I'm like, you know what? He shouldn't have treated me like that, And so I understand what it's like, and I'm sure you guys might too, about being somewhere, working for a job that you fucking hate, and then you are at a place that you really love, and you want to think back to that. And number one, think about how happy you are, but you have some bitter feelings. 16 years have gone by, and I'm still a little irritated by the way I was treated, because if this Greg, if 48-year-old Greg, from 16 years ago was in that room being talked to like that, we'd have a whole different problem, because who I am now would not allow anybody to talk to me like that again. And this guy was great. He paid me well, and he gave me a good job, and I had security there, and he trusted me, but he wasn't a very fun person to work for, to where I had a lot of lingering bitter feelings that I thought would evaporate in 6 months. It's 16 years later, and I still think about how uncool some of that was, but shit, I'm a happy guy now. I got the dream job of a lifetime. I love it. It's so stress-free. It's cushy. It's easy. I have an easier restaurant job than Brock Lesnar has a wrestling job. That's how easy it is. And even though I have all of that, I still have some bitterness in me, but I don't tweet about it or nothing, but I still feel that way. So we can all kind of try to relate to maybe what Ricochet is going through. Unfortunately, so many fans are tribal, they can't think beyond that. But if you're a regular person who does regular person shit, has friends, goes to parties, touched a boob before, that type of thing, you know what I'm talking about here. You've had situations, think about a job that you've hated, or something like that. And, sometimes you can still carry those feelings with you. Man, that motherfucker was sucked. I hated working for that guy, or hated working for them, or that company sucked, or that business sucked, or wherever I worked sucked. And it feels good not to be there anymore. Now, in Ricochet's case, I can relate to what he's doing, but unlike him, I'm never going to go back and work for that fucker on the East Coast. I'm in California now. I'm never leaving here. So I got no reason to not worry about burning a bridge or anything like that. But, you never know what could happen. And now if Ricochet ever has to find himself maybe going back to WWE one day, hey, what about all them tweets? So I thought we ruined your love for pro wrestling. So Ricochet saying these things, he's essentially saying to himself, and I'm not ever going back there. I don't believe that you can really burn a bridge in this world. I mean, CM Punk, that's all you got to know there. So I don't think if CM Punk, is brought back after, Saudi blood money covered dicks and stuff, I don't think a Ricochet tweet would matter 5 years from now. But these are things that, when you're tweeting that aggressively, you must really believe that you are never going to ever step foot back in that company again, nor do you ever care to. So a lot of bitterness there still with Ricochet. But he made his feelings known this week about WWE, and I don't care. It's fine, whatever. And it's just to prove to fans that it's not anything tribal. I don't think anybody in WWE would do this, but if anybody in WWE, I guess CM Punk kind of did. But if you're going to leave AEW and then come to WWE and then you're going to talk about all the things you didn't like about it there, I can relate to that for the same reason that I can relate to Ricochet, because I know what it's like to be in a job that you don't like. I talked about this when CM Punk left. I feel like Punk was a lot in the wrong there too, but bottom line is he hated where he worked, and I can relate to that. So whether it's Ricochet talking about WWE or Punk talking about AEW, I think all of us can relate to being in a job that you couldn't stand. And some of you might be in a job you hate right now. And when you leave that job, you're going to be like, I'm so glad I'm not fucking there anymore, because nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. So anyway, Ricochet maybe getting a little heat. Ha-ha. I can't even do the ha-ha. Not even good at it. Hey, you want to talk some more fun stuff? Here's a fun subject. You want to talk about a real fun subject? You talk about fun. Holy shit. We never talked about this Hangman Page and Marty Scurll shit, did we? Well, a couple of weeks ago, I can think it was Marty, a picture surfaced of Hangman Page and Marty Scurll outside a Cracker Barrel. So what this means is these two guys who are friends, used to be friends, met up and had lunch at Cracker Barrel. No big deal to me. Here's the problem. Marty Scurll, we all know, he had some allegations come against him a few years back, and he's pretty much been blacklisted from pro wrestling, and you're not going to be touching Marty Scurll. So Hangman Page, and of course, and him go way back, and they apparently had lunch together, and then a tweet, or a picture, I should say, surfaced online. I don't know if Marty posted it on Instagram or X or wherever he did it, but that, of course, disappointed a lot of fans. Fans are, oh, man, Hangman, because Hangman's the best. We love Hangman. He's just a great person. I've always enjoyed him as a pro wrestler, as a world champion. He's great on social media, stands up for all the right causes, that type of thing. A lot of fans, thought Hangman was one of us. But then he takes a picture with this horrible human being, right? Well, just to recap, in case you don't know, what the deal with Marty Scurll was. Back in 2020, during all that Me Too stuff, he was outed for taking advantage of a drunk, underage girl who was 16 at an IPW UK event back in 2015. So in 2020, he was accused of something that happened 5 years prior. Marty Scurll never denied this, basically admitted it, and said that he believed, number one, he didn't know her age at the time, but he defended it by saying it was consensual and by defending the legal age of consent in UK, which is 16. So that is not a good defense. Well, it's legal. That is only going to make your situation worse. So Skrull's, his view of the events, or his take on everything, is that he was fooling around with this girl. They had consensual sex. He didn't know she was that young, but when he did learn she was that young, he was like, well, it's not illegal. So he's claiming it's consensual. Either way, fans are like, look, it's just creepy. She is 16 years old. 16 years old. You are a man. You took advantage of her. She was inebriated, and that's what happened. So after an investigation, Ring of Honor wound up firing him. So he's been pretty much gone. He's been working, light indies, I think a little bit in Mexico. He's turned up here or there, but he's pretty much been blacklisted from mainstream pro wrestling. We're not going to see him in AEW or NXT or WWE or TNA. There's virtually probably no chance of that. So he apparently had lunch with Hangman Page, and then this tweet or this picture surfaced, and it really upset a lot of fans. It disappointed a lot of fans. A lot of fans were like, just disappointing. A lot of fans had a lot to say about it. And, I'll give you my opinion on it in a minute, but I want to talk about John Alba, our buddy John Alba. He interviewed Hangman Page about this a week or so ago. It's on YouTube. You can watch the whole interview. And Hangman talked about this for about 15 minutes. He discussed, because John Alba brought it up. He goes, hey, I got to ask you, of course, so this picture, surfaced online of you and Marty Scurll outside of a Cracker Barrel. Fans are disappointed. And Hangman, I thought, answered everything very well. He said he was adamant that he recognizes his disgraceful actions. He also said he never intended for this photo to be released. And he has no intention of whitewashing or glossing over what Marty Scurll did. But when he said he didn't intend for that photo to be released, Marty Scurll completely fucked his friend here. Because, Hangman could have also said, hey, don't post this, by the way. You've got heat, and I don't want this posting online because you know how people are. And if this gets posted online, you know exactly how they're going to react. So I'm surprised that Hangman didn't tell him, hey, don't post that. Sounds like Marty Scurll just posted it. Hangman didn't know he was going to post it. And of course, that opened up the floodgates of criticism towards Hangman. So he even goes on to say, Hangman, he says he even respects and understands if people are upset with him. So he was pretty upfront about all of it. We just had lunch. I didn't intend for that picture to be released. This wasn't an endorsement in any way. I'm not trying to whitewash what he did. All I did was have fucking lunch with the guy, but he wasn't defensive. And that's one cool thing about Hangman Page is that, I feel like if it was me, I might be a little bit more aggressive or defensive, which wouldn't do me any favors. And Hangman was very, understand. I understand fans are upset, or some fans might be upset. I apologize for that. I can assure you that I'm not, trying to excuse anything that he did. He knows how I feel about it. He knows that I think it's gross. I believe that he's deserved all of the consequences he's received for his actions, because had he not done this, he'd probably be a mainstream player in pro wrestling somewhere right now. But because of that, he's not. So he, it's two guys having lunch together. Are we pausing there? Are we good? Just making sure we're still live. There we go. I think we just briefly paused. I think we're good. Okay, sorry about that. We're good. I just noticed that we might have had a little bit of an interruption. So anyway, back to what I was saying, in case I don't know where exactly we got cut off, but the picture only depicts two dudes having lunch together. Had this picture not gotten released, then I don't think we're even talking about this. It wouldn't even be an issue. So in terms of Hangman, how he responded to it, how he responded to the criticism, I think he handled it pretty gracefully. You know, he wasn't mad or he wasn't angry. He wasn't overly defensive. He even said, hey, I understand if people are upset with me. Like, I get it. That's the world that we're living in. You know, people, you know, these are the things that you're judged for. And he just apologized and, you know, that was it. But, you know, when it comes to things like this is something that I can't really fault him too much for. We all think what Marty Scurll did was gross. We all think he's a piece of shit. None of us want anything to do with him. Hangman Page isn't, you know, doing business with him. He's not doing any wrestling angles with him. They're not affiliated in any way. These two guys sat down and had a fucking omelet together. Now, if you've got a friend that's done some shit, or you're a parent or a brother or a sister, or, you know, you've got a sibling or a son or a daughter or a mother or a father in prison or jail for something that they did, don't you go visit them, you know, and sit down. You know, they're still like your family, even though you're disappointed in them. You know, mothers have to deal with, you know, their 18-year-old sons being fucking murderers and shit. You know, and they're still giving them hugs and putting money on their books in prison and shit, you know. So when it comes to something like this, Hangman, this wasn't an endorsement. Hangman Page didn't post this. He didn't write out a 3-page notes app about why we should all forgive Marty Scurll. That's not what he's saying here. He had lunch with a longtime friend who's got some controversy attached to his name. I know some people who have some controversy attached to their name as well. And, you know, if I see them, I don't run away, you know, or whatever. It just depends on the situation, you know. And this is one where I can understand the fans who are disappointed by this, but this was a photo. Like, what, you can't tell someone what, you know, kind of what to do in their personal lives, because we don't know the nature of the relationship between Marty and Hangman. You know, Hangman was open in the interview. I'm sure Marty watched the interview. He's not lying to Marty. He was open in the interview with John, saying that he's mortified by the disgraceful actions of his friend and that his friend deserves the actions that he's received, or the consequences he's received for his actions. And he does think it's gross, and he does understand that fans would be disappointed. He was understanding of all of that. I had a private lunch with my friend. Unfortunately, the idiot posted a photo online. I didn't want that to happen, but it was just a private lunch between two people who've known each other for a long time. Me having lunch with him does not mean that I excuse everything. And that's what people have to understand. Just because he had lunch with the guy doesn't mean that everything is okay. Hangman Page has no issues with what Marty Scurll did. You got to think deeper than that. It's not like that. We're all grossed out by what Marty Scurll did, but Marty Scurll's not our friend. He's Hangman's friend. So it's up to Hangman about how he wants to deal with this relationship going forward. I don't think a Cracker Barrel lunch with Marty Scurll endorses hooking up with underage 16-year-old girls. And that's where fans cannot draw that line. I can understand you being disappointed, but, you know, you had people, you know, I didn't know he endorsed rapists. And so I'm like, well, come on. That's not what's happening here. It's not what's happening. Doesn't mean Hangman Page likes rapists. You know, we have to understand that not everything is so black and goddamn white. And while I agree with Hangman in terms of understanding that fans are disappointed, sure, there's some fans who are like, oh man, I really loved you, Hangman. Why did I have to see that picture? That reaction I understand, because that's the way I feel. Hangman Page is great, and then you see that picture and you're like, ugh. You know, but come on. You know, is he canceled now too? You know, I'm a liberal, but come on. Some of this shit is the reason people don't like liberals, okay? Is because you can't just cancel everything. And you got to pick your battles, and you have to look at each situation differently, individually, and judge it for itself. Now, like I said, you know, if Hangman is bringing Marty Scurll on his Hangman podcast and they talk for 2 hours and he posts it on YouTube, you know, that's one thing. Why are you platforming this motherfucker? But we're talking about an omelet at Cracker Barrel between two friends. It's supposed to be a private lunch. So in that respect, I'm not going to judge him too hard. And in terms of how he was asked about it, he did an interview, he addressed it, said all he was going to say about it. And like, what do you want from him? I don't want you to go to lunch with him again. Okay. Or just don't post a picture next time. You wouldn't have even known if you went to lunch with this dude, and luckily for me, I don't have any rapist friends. I don't have anybody that's ever done anything like what Marty Scurll did, so I can't directly try to relate to it because I don't have that specific situation, any experience with that. But I do have experience with situations with knowing friends that have gotten into trouble. Not trouble like that, but maybe some drug problems or, did a little stint in the clink. I know some people that did that and, they just did it, they got in trouble for different reasons. So something like this, I'd have to wait and see, who it was, what the situation was like, how close I am with the friend. All that would factor into how I chose to handle it, whether I'm just going to ghost this person completely or he's a big enough friend in my life that I'm at least hear him out. Okay, just tell me your side of the story, dude. And then say, okay, I understand all this. It sucks. I just feel like we can't be friends moving forward. I hope you understand, like that type of thing. But you don't know. You don't know how you're going to react. So none of us can tell Hangman how to handle this situation because it's not our situation to handle. So I think that what Page did, you have to judge the crime, and all he did was have lunch with the guy. Didn't platform him. Didn't make excuses for him, didn't tell the world that he should be forgiven, isn't defending him, nothing like that. He just had an omelet. So I think we need to chill. Hangman, you're still cool with me. Don't like Marty, think he's gross, but he's your friend, not mine. I don't have to worry about it. So you're cool. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it slide. I'm going to let it slide. Going to let it slide. What Marty Scurll did was disgusting. Nobody's debating that. But Hangman, sitting down at the old country store for some fucking eggs, I don't give a shit. Hey, let's talk about these two, because I think this would be so fun if we saw them back in WWE. Apparently, there has been some interest from AEW in the Inspiration, the former Iconics. And they just left TNA recently after dropping the belts there. They are now free agents. And I was surprised to hear that, well, I guess not, but I thought maybe WWE would be a better home for them. But AEW just kicked off their women's tag team division, and they have actual teams. They got the Babes of Wrath. They got the, Sisters of Sin. What's Bane and Ford called? Mega Bane or Mega Bad or something like that. So they got teams with team names. Oh, we got the Timeless Love Bombs too. So we have at least 4 teams that actually have team names in AEW. So bringing in a 5th one, just adds to the division. So I can kind of understand that. But apparently the Observer is claiming that kind of talks or interest from AEW in the Inspiration has slowed down. And I think that's fine because I would love to see them come into WWE. You know why? Because the Bellas are there. And I think that's kind of a natural feud. The Bellas are back, and of course they want a shot at the tag team titles. And, I know a lot of the Bellas criticism, people seem to think, it's a misogynistic or something. I know I love women's wrestling. I just don't like them. That's not a big deal. There's plenty of men wrestlers I don't like as well. It has nothing to do with their women or any of that shit and nothing like that. The Bellas just don't do anything for me as a fan. They might do something for you. They just don't do something for me. The Inspiration were crazy. I also found them to be slightly annoying, but also kind of funny. And between those two teams, I think the Iconics would absolutely own the Bellas. I think they would outperform them in every in-ring interaction. I think they would be funnier. And I think they would just, I think the Bellas would be their bitches if they came in. Like, honestly, I just think they are so much better than those two. Like, Nikki got good in the ring, but in terms of like what they can do and say on the mic and their entertainment value, the Inspiration, how comedic they could be. And the Bellas do not have that. They just don't have that presence at all about them. They're both unimaginably boring, especially when they talk, where the Iconics are very animated. And so I think if you have these two teams butt heads, you could be drawing a fine line there between being entertaining and like super annoying. But I think that those segments might be kind of fun. And I think that might be a fun feud. So the Bellas are targeting the tag team championships. I do not want to see the Bellas beat Io Sky and Rhea Ripley, but some team needs to beat them soon. So I think that team's going to be Nia Jackson, Lash Legend, actually, but maybe the Bellas can then be, How are the Bellas going to beat Nia and Lash? I have no idea. But if you can put the Bellas and the Iconics in the ring at WrestleMania, that might be kind of fun. Or if the Iconics, if the WWE is going to bring them in, I would bring them in as a open challenge or something, or have the Bellas come out to the ring and call out a team and it's the Iconics. I don't know, something like that. But the inspiration possibly now not going to AEW, I think is a good thing, because I would almost rather see them in WWE. And of course, what's her face? Her husband's already there. Spears, right? He's with whatever her name is. Peyton? Uh-oh, she might not be able to be Peyton Royce, because you can't have two Royces. You're going to have Peyton Royce and Royce Keys. And when you look at Peyton Royce and Royce Keys side by side, it's really hard to tell them apart. And I don't know if the WWE audience can really be able to organize two Royces in their mind. It might be too difficult, especially since they look so much alike. So we'll have to see. If the Iconics come back, they might have to change Peyton Royce's last name, because we already got a Royce. But yeah, Iconics and Bellas, call me insane, because I kind of think I half am. I actually want to see that. That's a very insane sentence to say. I want to see an Iconics versus Bella Twins match. Coming out of my mouth is something that I don't think I'd ever would have said. First time for everything. Hey, congratulations to, say his name and he wins the title. Joe Hendry won the vacant NXT title this past week on Tuesday. In the ladder match, Obafemi vacated it upon hitting the main roster, and Joe Hendry is now the NXT champion. So he's a full-blown member of the WWE now, done with TNA, signed with WWE. And I guess it's only going to be a matter of time before he is on television. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a second WrestleMania match this year, or at least makes a WrestleMania appearance. I think an appearance is absolutely likely. I'm sure he will defend the title at the Mania NXT weekend show. What is that? Stand and Deliver, maybe? Whatever it's called. So he'll defend there, win or lose, and then I think him showing up in some capacity at WrestleMania is possible. And another thing I would like to see them do at WrestleMania is to have more, have one or two, at least one night, have like an in-ring segment where somebody comes out or there's a surprise. It'd be a good spot for Jericho, or a good spot for Joe Hendry, or something like that. You know, a couple of years ago when Shane McMahon came back and then blew out his quad, I was there for that. And Snoop came in and took over. You know, that was kind of a letdown, you know, Shane coming out, but having some sort of a big return in an in-ring segment in the middle of the show on night 1 and night 2, I think it would be really fun. Don't just stick to the matches. It's WrestleMania. Let's do fun shit. So Joe Hendry last year faced Randy Orton in a match. Maybe this year Joe Hendry just comes out there and maybe he's in the ring and he's joined by Chris Jericho, or maybe, how great is this? Let's say Kevin Owens isn't cleared yet. I hope he can come back to in-ring competition one day. I don't think it will be in time for WrestleMania. But let's say he's not cleared for in-ring competition, but he's pretty healthy. Doesn't have a neck brace on. He can move around pretty good. Everything's normal with him. He can move and speak like a normal person. He's just not cleared to compete in the ring. You have a KO show with a mystery guest. Seth Rollins had a mystery opponent. We all knew who the mystery opponent was before it happened. We didn't need to be told. Kevin Owens has a mystery KO show guest. We don't need to be told. We know who it will be. Do you think he'd come out to Judas, or would he come out to Break Down the Walls? I think he should come out to Judas, and they should sing it in Allegiant Stadium. That would be fun. Also, it is probably likely, since it is WrestleMania season, this is according to Brian Alvarez. I think it was reported a couple of other places as well, but we could be seeing the return pretty soon of Bad Bunny to WWE. Bad Bunny is in the news a lot right now. First of all, he fucking cleaned up at the Grammys. He now has 6 Grammys. So that is Bad Bunny. I'm going to write down here, do the math. Bad Bunny 6, and then I'm adding up all the Kid Rock Grammys to see who has more. So Bad Bunny has 6. Okay, now I take all these Kid Rock ones and I carry the 1. He has 0. Okay, so it's Bad Bunny Grammys 6, Kid Rock 0. Just did the math there. But he is expected back in WWE pretty soon. And it's Mania season, and he's been involved in Mania before. And when you look back to that Backlash show, it was the match with him and Priest, and that entrance, my God, how fucking great that was. Bad Bunny's been really fun in WWE, and Logan Paul has as well. You know, there's been talk of Jake Paul coming in. Now we got these fucking douche brothers together. But Bad Bunny is a little interesting right now because of kind of everything else going on. You know, WWE does business with Jelly Roll right now. Jelly Roll, the self-admitted dumb redneck who doesn't like to talk about politics. Meanwhile, he's at the Trump prayer breakfast. He's testified for Congress about the fentanyl crap. He's been photographed with the administration more than once with Kristi Noem and all this. So he is right-wing, pretending to not be. And now you got Bad Bunny, who, of course, is at the center of this Super Bowl controversy, which really isn't a controversy. Nothing is going to be boycotted. They've got this alternate assorted entertainment cracker fucking Super Bowl, this pussy-ass snowflake loser fest, because they can't handle Bad Bunny in the Super Bowl because it's going to be in Spanish. We're going to boycott the Super Bowl. Here we go again with this shit. So right now, Bunny is in the news because of that, because, you know, the snowflakes want to ban or boycott the NFL for like the 10th time in the last decade. They wanted to boycott it. When did Kaepernick kneel down? Wasn't that like 12 years ago? They were all going to boycott it because he kneeled down during America's theme song. Oh, the horror. A kneel down. His knee touched the grass during a theme song. Oh, my God. So they already boycotted the NFL about a bunch of shit. They're always mad about the Super Bowl halftime show. They're every year, boycott, boycott, boycott. So this is nothing new. Every year we go through this with them. And I think it was what year was it that Bad Bunny's? He's already done the halftime show. He did it like 5 years ago. So it's not like the first time, but the funniest part is people are mad, he's going to sing Spanish. You know, Bad Bunny speaks twice as many languages as anybody who says he can't even speak English. I'm like, he speaks more languages than you. Here, you live here. You know, you're actually calling someone who's a bilingual Puerto Rican American citizen. You think that's a bad thing, you know? How come you don't speak two languages, you fucking moron? You should speak English here. You know, I'm like, they don't care about a halftime show. They care about being openly and loudly racist. That's all they care about. So now they're going to have their, you know, fucking Kid Rock Fest and Bartley Gabbett and all these other fuckers on there. And they're going to have this like alternate Super Bowl. They're not going to watch it. If they have a choice to watch their own shit or to watch something and be mad, they're going to choose to watch something and be mad. So they're going to be mad about Bad Bunny. Nobody's going to boycott anything. Nobody's going to walk out of the Super Bowl. Bad Bunny is a globally well-known artist who I only come to know because of WWE. Remember when he first showed up? We were like, who the fuck is Bad Bunny? I didn't know who he was. I had no idea who Bad Bunny was. Elizabeth smartened me up. She was the one, she goes, he's huge. And I'm like, well, I've never heard of him. She goes, you don't even know. Like, he is a very, 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 very popular. And so she had to fucking educate me on who Bad Bunny was. And then he comes into the WWE and does well. Has those matches that are fun. He's all in on it. You know, and I mean, him and Logan Paul both coming in and being two of the best celebrities that they've ever put in the ring. And Logan Paul is pretty much part-time now. Bunny is still going to be in and out. But the work and the effort that he put in, we were all impressed with him. We loved seeing Bad Bunny in WWE because he did well. He wasn't a celebrity, you know, not there, not knowing the product, not knowing what he's doing. He wants to be there, wants to be a part of it. He's not like Pam Anderson at the Royal Rumble 95, just going through the motions. Doesn't seem to give a fuck. Not Jeremy Piven in the ring calling it Summerfest. You know, these are, you know, the Logans and the Bunnies are people who are in there that actually like to do this. So we couldn't have asked for anything better in a celebrity, you know, involvement in pro wrestling matches or pay-per-view matches or whatnot. Bad Bunny did well. So he's got the Super Bowl halftime show. He's got to get through this whole shit first. And, you know, and all the angry bumpkins who are mad that the Super Bowl performance isn't going to be sung in bumpkin. He's going to be singing it in Spanish, and they don't understand that. But who listens to the Super Bowl halftime show anyway? What are you doing? Don't people go to parties? What do you guys do at Super Bowl? Or if you're at a Super Bowl party with a bunch of people in the house, is everybody gathered around the TV listening and watching the Super Bowl halftime show? You're watching it, but you're pissing, you're talking to everybody else, you're getting more snacks, you're drinking, you're stepping outside to smoke a doobie, whatever you're doing. Not everybody's eyes just glued to the halftime show. So the halftime show, for years has always been kind of ridiculed. As a matter of fact, back in 1999, WWE ran Halftime Heat because I think it was like Gloria Estefan and someone else, and they considered it a boring halftime show. But there's always criticisms every year of who the acts are. And in more recent years, because of the division in the country, it's become more racial. You know, if you got a rapper, like last year it was Kendrick Lamar, and what did they all say? What did the sunglasses and the American flag and God first in their bio type of accounts want? I don't understand why I can't be a country star. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, do you hear yourselves? Do you hear yourselves? So you have to deal with that shit every year, and now it's become more and more divided, and so poor Bad Bunny, before he comes back into our world, he's got to get through all this bullshit first. But it is interesting that Bad Bunny would still be on good terms with WWE, who's a fucking MAGA company right now. We've got the fucking Linda McMahon there and Triple H at the fucking White House with Kennedy and Trump and all this disgusting garbage. Bad Bunny is very, very much anti-ICE. And I guess money talks. I mean, Bad Bunny is a globally recognized star. WWE is going to bring him in and, you know, ride off that, and Bunny is going to do the same. So I guess it's just business, and hopefully none of the political stuff will get in the way of that relationship. But I was wondering how that was going to go, because WWE is very pro this administration. You know, The Rock's daughter, Ava, just quit, and the moment her contract was up, first thing she said on social media was fuck ICE and fuck this administration, and I couldn't say that before now. And Bad Bunny, you know, he pushes a very, very anti-ICE message. And so WWE, I would imagine, doesn't like that. But Bad Bunny, he was fine, then I just won't work with you guys again. I don't think he gives a shit. But I'm hoping the relationship continues, because every time we've seen Bad Bunny in WWE, it's been good. If not, maybe you can go to AEW. We had the big fuck ICE chance on Wednesday, you know, so it's interesting how you like literally have Jelly Roll, you know, who claims he's a dumb redneck who doesn't understand politics. Yes, he does. And then you have Bad Bunny on the complete other side, and WWE's doing business with both. And that would be fine normally, you know, in the old WWE, who tried to remain as, you know, bipartisan as possible or unbiased as possible. But now it is clear which side of the historical fence WWE is choosing to be on, and they're going to regret that. And that's not the side Bad Bunny is on. So, like I said, you know, 20 years ago, this wouldn't fucking matter at all, but maybe it does now. We'll see if that affects him coming in, but I don't think it should. I don't think it should affect it at all. I don't think WWE should have any problem working with him or vice versa or whatever. Hopefully, you know, the relationship can continue there and no political strains will find its way in here, because that, you know, that sucks that we're getting to that point, you know. Gross as everything is political, you know, sometimes you can find these certain escapes in life, whatever that may be. And for some people, it might be wrestling, you know, and it's kind of hard to escape that with, you know, WWE, you know, being so far in bed with, you know, that administration. It sucks. We're like losing our safe space type of thing. So we'll see how the Bad Bunny stuff plays out. But apparently he might be back for Mania season in some capacity, because, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with Damian Priest. I don't know what he has planned for WrestleMania, if anything at all. I feel like he's going to be an Andre Battle Royal guy or something like that. So if Bad Bunny is going to come in and do anything for WrestleMania season or at WrestleMania itself, I hope Priest would be involved, because otherwise I don't know what Priest would do at Mania. Like, what do you think he would do at WrestleMania? We will have to wait and see. But good luck to Bad Bunny tomorrow. I'll be watching the halftime show, the normal, real, actual halftime show, not the pretend one for the snowflakes. People who hate snowflakes are the biggest fucking snowflakes of all time. Back in the day, the Dixie Chicks, like, opposed the war in Iraq, and all of a sudden they were Al-Qaeda. People were burning Dixie Chicks CDs. France opposed the war, so then we had Freedom Fries. We are the most thin-skinned bunch of patriots on the fucking planet. Unbelievable how everything makes them mad. You'd think they'd be mad at frauds, adulteries, pussy grabbing, felonies, sexual assaults, being mentioned in the Epstein files more times than Jesus is mentioned in the Bible. You'd think they'd be upset at that and not Cracker Barrel logos, but that's the world we're living in. So All the best to Bad Bunny tomorrow at the Super Bowl. All right, let's talk about Monday Night Raw. We were here on Monday to do a review of the show, and I cannot say enough good things about that CM Punk and Roman Reigns promo. That was a great way to kick off what will likely be the Night 2 main event at WrestleMania. I thought the two had an amazing promo together, and this is going to be one of those feuds where we are going to get a little bit of real life in here, because even though behind the scenes, I'm sure they are perfectly cool, they know the gloves are off, and hey, all the things that has happened in the past, in order to make this match as good and as special and as intriguing as humanly possible, we got to bring all this shit up, and they were bringing it up, and I think that's going to be a fun main event. It really is. Punk staying healthy, of course, is very important, and CM Punk is likely going to be defending the World Championship in Chicago at the United Center at the Elimination Chamber. Word is it is going to be Finn Balor, and as we saw during the Punk and Roman promo on Raw, when Punk came out to the ring, he immediately ghosted Roman and went right to the camera and called out Finn Balor. So we knew that match was probably going to happen again, and it's likely going to be set for the Chamber. We also had the Braun Breaker stuff, and like I said, I fully expect him to get a qualifier. I don't think they've announced one yet, but I think he's going to get an Elimination Chamber match qualifier, and I expect the Masked Man to screw him either out of the qualifier or out of the chamber match itself, just depending on how they want to do it. I don't think he needs to be in the chamber. Might be a little complicated to have the masked guy. Well, it shouldn't be too hard. They open that big-ass door all the time. So I'm sure the masked dude could get in there somehow, but it might be easier just to do it on Raw in a qualifier and have the masked man come out and stomp Breaker on the floor, because I think these are triple threat matches, right? And then the other person can win in the ring and qualify, and Breaker gets screwed again. Word is the masked man in Saudi Arabia was Grayson Waller. He was under the mask there. Of course, we know it's not going to be Grayson Waller. Looks to be that the plan is that as long as he's healthy, the masked man is going to be Seth Rollins. That's going to be the reveal. I suppose if he's not, they could make it Austin Theory, or, maybe somebody else, but it sounds like Seth is the plan here. And I don't think that WWE would start going through with this angle if they didn't feel like Rollins was going to be ready. So this, to me, feels like Rollins should be healthy by the time we get to late April for WrestleMania, and that's going to be the plan here. So Breaker is likely to get screwed, and then I think it'll be Breaker and Rollins probably at WrestleMania. So on Monday, we're supposed to get Elimination Chamber qualifiers for Rhea Ripley and for Io Sky, and I suppose we're going to get one for Braun Breaker in the near future as well. So we'll get some full previews of Raw here probably by tomorrow, but I think that's what is tentatively scheduled. But this past week, them solidifying that Night 2 main event right off the bat, which is what I predicted. I said, when it comes to the Royal Rumble winners, sometimes they do the thing where they have to hit both brands and decide and have this big decision-making process. Liv can do that, Roman cannot. And I expected Roman to pick CM Punk on Monday. He did, and now that is set. And as of right now, I think Roman is going to win the title at WrestleMania, and if he just beats Punk clean and then celebrates with Pyro, would we consider that to be a little bit of a letdown or disappointing that that's all it was and there wasn't anything else to it? Is the finish going to be a big surprise, big heel turn, big reveal, something like that? Or is it just going to be a straight up match with a 1, 2, 3 in the middle? We'll see. Either way, I'm excited so far for that match, because the build is going to be good. I knew it would be. All right, let's talk about last night's SmackDown, Friday Night SmackDown. One of the things I was hoping we would see on SmackDown last night was Drew McIntyre responding to Punk and Roman, who on Monday night, of course, as we saw, they completely buried not only Drew McIntyre, but that championship, just throwing fucking heaps of dirt on poor Drew. Oh my God. I mean, they had ganged up on him. It was like a tag team on the poor guy. So I was hoping that McIntyre would come out and issue a couple of receipts. Well-deserved receipts, I might add. And of course, McIntyre does open up the show, but he doesn't even get very far because he's attacked by a very, very angry Cody Rhodes. Of course, Drew McIntyre crashed the Royal Rumble match and was instrumental in eliminating Cody Rhodes, costing him a chance to challenge for the title at WrestleMania. So Cody is pissed. He attacks Drew McIntyre. He gets on the mic, and he talks about Punk and Roman, and he says, this was so delicious. He says that on Raw that it was the Punk and Roman was turning it into a you-know-what contest, which I guess he couldn't say dick, or a you-know-what measuring contest, which for some reason he couldn't say dick. So he said the two of them were making it a you-know-what measuring contest, but it's a good thing I wasn't there because they didn't give me the nickname Raheem for no reason. So Cody references the Raheem meme, right? And this is all stemming I don't know what year it was, back in AEW when Cody had that emotional promo about having a black wife and an interracial child or a biracial child. And it was very awkward the way he kind of delivered it. And he was emotional and it was weird. And you just wanted to crawl inside yourself and eat your butt. It was awful. And ever since then, he's been invited to the barbecue and we've got the pictures with the African hats and whatnot. And, to my friends, my African-American friends, my black friends in the chat there, how do you feel about that? Is that something you get a kick out of? Is that something you find disrespectful? Because I've kind of seen it on both sides. A lot of people see the fun in it. Others are like, we shouldn't go there. I don't know. I'm going to let you guys tell me how to feel about that. But the fact that he brings that up, and then you go to Twitter, of course, and you go to Brandy's profile, and she tweets the Janet Jackson eating popcorn gif, and she goes, "It's true, though." So Brandy's backing it up. But that was just a wild line. It like borderline on hilarious and cringe at the same time. It's like, Mr. Rhodes, sir. What are we saying here? I just thought it was hilarious. It was like, it's like that. So that got a lot of reaction online on social media because I was at work and I was looking at it, and that's when I saw it. And I'm like, Cody Rhodes, you are something else. So anyway, Raheem was fired up last night on SmackDown, and he basically calls out Drew. He gives Punk and Roman that little dig there. And what I did like about this, what I did think was a positive thing about this promo, is the anger and rage in Cody. And that's something you don't see a lot sometimes from people right after they lose a title or right after they get, eliminated from the Rumble. Cody got eliminated from the Rumble in a really sketchy, shady-ass way. McIntyre interfered, fucked him out of his shot. He should be pissed. The very first thing he should do when the show opens up is attack that motherfucker. So Cody knows this. These are things Cody understands that maybe WWE creative doesn't. I'm glad that people like Cody and Punk are on top because they're the ones that will say shit like, hey, my character needs to be pissed. You can't have me coming out there in a suit. I have to come out there enraged, and Cody was, and that was the right reaction. So Cody attacked Drew. He cuts that fiery promo in the ring, and then backstage, Aldis is telling Cody that he's got to leave. You got to control your emotions because you've got an elimination chamber qualifier match next week, and that's the only way you're going to get a shot at the champion at WrestleMania. But I'm going to reconsider that if you don't control your emotions. And then Cody's like, all right, you're right. I will go. Consider my emotions controlled, which I got a kick out of. But next week, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? I haven't seen the match graphic in front of me. But next week, the qualifier that Nick Aldis is referring to is a triple threat match, Elimination Chamber qualifying match, Cody Rhodes versus Jacob Fatu versus Sami Zayn. So those three men are the same three men that I have pitched possibly being in a multi-man match for McIntyre's title. Because we talked about the possibility of that match being a multi-man ordeal. And how I feel like it's very likely that it could be. And Cody, Aldis saying that, specifically saying you've got to win that match and that's the only way you're going to get a shot at the championship. They're almost making it sound like they might do the Rhea Ripley thing with him. and it might even go the exact same way. Remember last year, Rhea Ripley fought so hard to the point where she was starting to, tread on not being so much of a babyface. She was trying so hard to get into a title match at WrestleMania, and then she finally got in and she lost. She didn't win last year, right? Was it Io, Rhea, and Bianca? That's the match we got, right? And Io retained. Do I have that right? So maybe they do the same thing with Cody. He fights and fights and fights and gets in at the last minute, meaning like he doesn't win the Elimination Chamber. Maybe Jacob does, and then Cody somehow gets in. Or maybe Cody wins, but Jacob finds his way in. They're really make it sound like at least Jacob should be involved in this thing. And perhaps maybe even Sami Zayn does as well. So Cody, Jacob, and Sami, maybe McIntyre interferes in this match somehow. And then Aldis is like, all right, now I'm going to give the losers another shot to qualify or something like that. If McIntyre comes out and screws Cody next week, specifically comes out and screws Cody, Jacob wins and he qualifies. Now Cody is pissed that McIntyre screwed him again, and then Aldis goes to McIntyre, says, hey, you are so hell-bent on not facing Cody. You seem scared of him to me, and I don't want my champion being scared. So here's what's going to happen. I'm putting Cody Rhodes in another Elimination Chamber qualifying match next week, and if you interfere in that, I'm stripping you your title. Get the fuck out of my face. And then Cody wins that and gets in. Something like that. So I think maybe, and then if you want to add Sami to the mix, you can. Apparently there was a report this week. Poor Sami Zayn. We just donated to Sami for Syria, by the way. But poor Sami Zayn. Apparently he was lobbying pretty hard to win the title. These days with, the way the locker rooms are, usually people are lobbying for other people to win the title. But Sami was lobbying for himself, apparently at the Royal Rumble, pretty hard to win the title, but they elected to not only not have him win the title, but for Drew McIntyre just to beat him straight up clean in the ring. So I'm not sure if Sami can find his way in here to this match or not. But, if it's going to be a three-way, it might as well be a four-way. It would get Sami Zayn involved, put him in a big match at WrestleMania, and probably in the losing effort. So, if Cody does something similar to what Rhea Ripley did last year and then gets into the match, I think he should lose. I think McIntyre should retain at WrestleMania, at least right now. That's what I don't feel like you need to do two title changes. I think McIntyre retaining in a four-way, it protects everyone, because lots of things can happen and everybody's going to have an out or an excuse. You can just pin Sami in the match. That way Cody and Jacob are protected or something like that. I feel like if it's going to be a multi-man match for McIntyre's title, McIntyre should retain at WrestleMania and Roman should beat CM Punk. I can't see it going the other way. I can't see it going Drew losing in the four-way and then Punk retaining against Roman. That doesn't even sound right. I feel like Drew would retain in that scenario if that's what we in fact see. Because there's a lot of people that believe it's going to be Cody and Drew, one-on-one. And that's the match we're getting. And I guess maybe if you want to do, because we had Punk and Roman calling out the WWE champion, essentially, kind of devaluing that belt and that brand. So you could have Cody and Drew and Punk and Roman, and the four of them can try to outdo each other. Maybe it's Triple H and say, hey, it's up to you guys. Convince me which one of these two matches is the night two main event. Create that competition within your own roster. Like Punk and Roman, Cody and Drew, you guys are going to have your segments, your individual contract signings, all this shit on TV you're going to do respectively on Raw and SmackDown. Show me why you should be the night two main event and let them compete. That's what I'd do. But I think there's also a good chance that Drew defends in a multi-man ordeal. And that's what I would do if it's going to be, if Punk and Roman is in fact going to be night two. Feels like it's got to be. So I think this match should be night one. Another reason why you make it a multi-man is to justify it being on night one. Because if it's just Cody and Drew, that's WWE's most prized title. And there's no rule that says the Rumble winner is the automatic night two challenger. They claim they have four main events, so winning the Rumble doesn't mean you challenge on night two. That doesn't mean that at all. So Cody and Drew could make a case we should be the night two main event. So, but WWE might want Roman and Punk to be the night 2. But they also have to acknowledge that Cody and Drew should be, so let's just make it easy. Let's make it a multi-man match. The multi-man match, that gives us justification now for that night 1 main event. Now there's no controversy. Where if it's Cody and Drew, people are going to be like, why isn't that night 2? You know, Roman's just a part-timer. And CM Punk just came back a couple years ago. So why isn't Cody and Drew night 2? People would debate or argue. Maybe WWE, that's a debate they don't want or they don't want to deal with or hear. So doing a multi-man, I think, kind of makes it a night 1 main event by default. And I think that's what they should do. So we'll see how the qualifier plays out and how the chamber spots fill out, because I don't think anything's going to be definite. Like, for example, next week, if Cody loses this, I don't think that guarantees him out of the Mania match. I think he's going to be in a championship match against Drew McIntyre one way or the other. Whether it's one-on-one or in a multi-man, that's Cody's direction for Mania. It just depends on if it's one-on-one or a multi-man. We'll have to see. But even if he loses next week on SmackDown, which I think there's a good chance he will, even if he loses, I think he still finds his way in after the fact. After that whole thing with Drew and Cody, we had that tag team match, title match. So Julia and Kiana James get a title shot because they won a number 1 contenders match, and that meant Julia and Io Sky get to be in the ring together, and they had some fun in there, some fun Joshi action, probably the best match on the show. Julia did look like she got busted open a little bit there. It was really fun to see her and Io interact and wrestle in the ring, and then Io took that very scary dive. It looked like she came down, I think, right on her face, just on the outside of the ring. I thought she rang her bell, but she got right up and did the thing, and I'm like, okay, I guess she's all right, but that looked like she just smashed her face right on the floor. So they had that scary spot on the outside. Other than that, though, it was a really fun match. I'm liking Kiana James, to be honest. She had a whole lot of energy, too, in the Royal Rumble that I definitely took notice of. And we got a little Riptide moonsault combo there to Julia for the win. And Io Sky and Rhea Ripley retain the titles. And like I said in my Raw review this week, I'm really ready for them to drop these titles, man, because I feel like whatever they do at WrestleMania shouldn't be a women's tag team title match. And with the Bellas announcing on Monday that that they're targeting the tag team titles, the last thing in the universe I want is Rhea and Io having to defend the titles against those two at WrestleMania. So I hope that Rhea and Io drop the belts before then. Shout out to Jersey Mike's. But I don't want them to drop them to the Bellas. But I think I know who they might drop them to. And that is the team that they interacted with after that backstage. Now, that's when Aldis announced to them that Rhea and Io have Elimination Chamber qualifying matches on Raw. He didn't say if it was against each other or individual matches, but I think it's individual matches. So they're both going to have a chance to qualify. So after that, Nia Jax and Lash Legend were there, and they basically made it known that they want the next title shot. There you go. They should beat them. Because I was wondering just the other day when we were kind of brainstorming about this on Monday regarding those two. I said, if they lose the titles, who is going to beat them? Who is going to be the team to beat them? I don't want it to be the Bellas, but Nia and Lash, that is a very formidable team because Ripley's a badass. Io is probably the best across the entire business right now. So you can't just have the Bellas beating them. You know what I mean? You would need 100 Bellas to beat them. But Nia Jax and Lash Legend, that's a whole different story because these women are big and bad and strong, and they are a perfect candidate for me to win the tag team titles. So whenever that match happens, that's when I think you do whatever sort of thing you're going to do with Rhea Ripley and Io. I feel like a nice little miscommunication spot. Maybe Io Sky coming in with one of her hard drop kicks and nails Ripley by accident, and then they lose the titles, and then there's a little arguing after that, but ultimately cooler heads prevail, but then they both qualify for the chamber as well. And maybe it comes down to the two of them or something. Or one of them, I guess neither one of them can win if they're going to face each other. So maybe Io Sky eliminates Rhea Ripley or something like that in the chamber. And then, maybe Ripley's pissed and she sticks around. Or maybe Ripley gets eliminated by Io Sky. And then she lets her emotions get the better of her and she just headbutts Io Sky on her way out the door. And then Io Sky gets eliminated in the chamber. And then that leads them to their Mania match. Something like that. But Nia Jax and Lash Legend, that's my pick to win the tag team titles. The only thing that makes me worried there is the same thing I mentioned about Rhea and Io. If the Bellas want a shot at the tag team titles, that kind of tells me that they're going to win them. I feel like WWE is going to put the tag team titles on them, which I'm fine with. I don't like the Bellas, but I also don't care enough about the tag team titles to be mad about the Bellas winning the tag team titles. Fucking win them. I don't give a shit. But what I don't want is for the Bellas to beat a badass team like Rhea and Io or like Nia Jax and Lash Legend. Nia Jax and Lash Legend should fucking murder these two. And if they pull some twin magic shit on them and beat them, I'm going to be like, no. So if the Bellas are going to win the tag team titles, I don't want to see them beating Rhea and Io or Nia and Lash. So I don't know how that's going to all shake out, but in terms of Ripley and Sky dropping the tags, I think Jax and Lash Jax. We need a cool name for them. That's the team I think should do it because I like them together. They're fucking badass. Carmelo Hayes beat The Miz last night. Nothing to really talk about there. Tiffany Stratton, who returned at the Royal Rumble, she qualified for the Elimination Chamber, defeating Chelsea Green and Lash Legend in a three-way there. So Tiffany is in the Elimination Chamber. We had Kit Wilson out there to talk about his toxic masculinity and how much he hates it, and he's issuing an open challenge to any unwashed, smelly fuck that might be in the back, and the man who chose to answer was, of course, Obafemi. So that was stupid of Kit Wilson. Kit died. Oba ate him and pooped him right out. Absolutely murdered him. Kit was obliterated by Obafemi. Still, no word exactly where he's going to land. Where would you guys prefer him? I don't really care, I guess. I think maybe he might be more fun on Raw. I'm not really sure. He might be more fun on SmackDown. I don't know. I don't know where I prefer him. I think Obafemi should sign with NXT. I think he could do big things there. I think he'd see great success. He could maybe even win their title in NXT. I think maybe if he can't decide where to go, he should think about NXT. Don't sleep on him. He might like it there. He should try him out. But otherwise, I don't know where he's going to land. But I'm liking him coming out here squashing people. By the way, a lot of people didn't like what happened on Raw. He squashed the fuck out of the War Raiders. It wasn't even a match. They were out there waiting for their opponents for their match. And Oba came out instead and just crushed them and destroyed them. And a lot of fans were kind of upset about that. And I'm going against the grain on that one, y'all. Didn't bother me. I didn't care. The Warrior Raiders haven't even been on TV much. And we all love them. They were great and stuff. But, spot on the card, where are they ever going to just... They could certainly win the tag team titles again, but, I also could see them getting released. You know what I mean? So in terms of where they are, and I understand, they should be pushed like a dominant tag team. I get it. I did like the War Raiders. I still do. But I'm not thinking that they were really done wrong here. And for one of the reasons is that if WWE is, we don't know yet, but if they are planning Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar, then this is very much like what Brock did in 2002. He did this to the Hardy Boys, who were way more established than the War Raiders back then. Jeff had already had an IC title run by that point. They were a very decorated tag team. All those TLC matches were behind them. And Jeff was about to have that historic ladder match for the title against The Undertaker on Raw. So the Hardys were huge stars. And in comes Brock Lesnar and just completely annihilates them. As a matter of fact, then he beats them in a handicap match, I think on pay-per-view, right after that. So he came in and annihilated them. Then... Didn't he come out on SmackDown? I have a memory of him doing, it might have just been a match. Maybe it wasn't an attack, but I feel like it might have been early on. And he does this wild ass F5 to like A-Train or something. So I remember like at first he was coming in and just attacking people, big badass people or top stars in the company, and just beating the shit out of them. That's the way you bring a monster in. And at the time, back in 2002, nobody was saying, oh, the Hardy Boys shouldn't have been done like that. Nobody was. Maybe some people were. I wasn't. It didn't matter to me. They were trying to get this man over as a monster. Look at what he can do. Look at which the ease of which he disposes of these two multi-time champions in our company. I think that's the story they were telling with Obafemi. The War Raiders, this big, badass team, especially Ivar, who's huge and massive and can just club you to death. Obafemi came in and made them look like children. That's the point. I think fans are just too tailored to kind of automatically think that, they shouldn't have been done like that. This is pro wrestling. This is what you do. You get this monster over there. Andre used to win, battle royals. He used to win matches 5 against 1 and all that shit. You're just putting this monster over. And I think that was the point, is to saying, hey, the War Raiders should be presented as a tough team. They were. They were showing you that Obafemi is so badass that he can beat up this badass team by himself. So I was kind of not with the critiques there. It didn't bother me. The War Raiders aren't in a spot in the card where what was done to them was damaging. I think that they're a team that I could... If we read that they were released, I wouldn't stand up in shock and horror. I'd feel bad for them because I like them and I'd wish them the best, but I'd also understand people get released, and I wouldn't stand up in outrage because in terms of where they've been, what they've been doing lately, they're releasable, So Obafemi coming out and squashing them and beating them up, that's the way a lot of monsters come in. I don't think it's that abnormal. And I think it's almost like a Pavlovian thing. I think there are certain situations that fans kind of just automatically go right to the same arguments. And even though I get what they were saying about the War Raiders, I wasn't upset about it. I was interested in how that made Oba look because that was the point. And it really hammered home that this man is not to be trifled with. So after that, McIntyre's out again. So McIntyre's out again. He's going to get this promo out one way or the other. So he comes all the way down to the ring this time. Time before, he only got to the entryway. This time, he makes it all the way down the ring, gets in the ring, and then he's attacked by Jacob Fatu. So Fatu kicks his ass. Drew retreats through the crowd, and Aldis gets on Jacob's case and tells him to go. Or he's going to be out of his Elimination Chamber qualifier next week, too. So that's why, with Jacob's involvement here, that's why I feel like signs are really pointing to a multi-man match more than just Cody and Roman, or Cody and Drew. I think it's got to be Drew versus Cody versus Jacob, maybe versus Sammy. But triple threat is fine with me. 4-way, the more the merrier. I don't really care either way. But if it's just Cody, Drew, and Jacob, I can live with that. And that's going to be technically a WrestleMania main event for Jacob, a brand new guy getting one. So that's a good thing. Where everybody else has been there before. Except maybe Drew. I mean, can you really count 36? WrestleMania main event in front of 9 people. Does that count? I don't think it counts. I think it would be a big moment for Drew as well. Also, on SmackDown, Tama Tonga beat Shinsuke Nakamura with help from the MFTs. They're still doing this lantern crap. I don't think, excuse me. I don't think there is anything across all of pro wrestling that I care about less than the MFTs stealing the lantern. Don't care. I mean, for God's sakes, how much longer are they going to do this? We're coming up to WrestleMania time here. So let's figure this lantern shit out and not bring that into WrestleMania. I don't think either team will be seeing a WrestleMania match. That's for sure. So I don't care about that. Tama Tonga beat Shinsuke Nakamura. No big deal. Backstage, this was funny. Johnny Gargano was depressed because he's been doing the shit with Fraxium and he had the mask and then he lost the mask. And he's all depressed and he's laying face down on an NXT crate. and he's just sad. And Candice LeRae is there, and so he won't move. And then he's approached by Fraxium and the Motor City Machine Guns, who don't seem to give a shit that he's got issues. And she's like, come on, you go way back with him. Come on, kind of help him out. And they're like, no, he's a fucking tool, and they leave. So it was kind of funny to see him like laying there with his head next to the NXT black and gold logo or letters there. And I almost feel like it's a message, a subtle message saying he misses Ciampa. He misses Ciampa. Ciampa's gone. The days of DIY and the black and gold NXT are gone. And Ciampa's in AEW now with a title match tonight. Collision goes live in 15 minutes. We're probably going to overlap a bit with Collision. So Johnny Gargano was depressed, I thought. That was kind of funny. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, they were out for a promo. Of course, Liv is there to kind of scout Jade Cargill. Before Liv and Raquel can get into what went down on Monday, since Raquel, lost her title match with Stephanie Vaquer, out comes Jade Cargill. They talk some shit. Jordan Grace then comes out. Jordan and Jade are kind of feuding, of course, right now. And then Nick Aldis comes out and makes the tag team match. It's going to be Jordan and Jade teaming up against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, and they would win that match. There was a couple of miscues between Morgan and Raquel. They've been kind of playing on that a little bit. Plus, Raquel told both Liv and Roxanne to stay out of the match on Monday, and they both showed up. So now a couple of miscues here, including one that led to the finish with a big boot right to Liv Morgan's face. Jordan Grace shoves Raquel into Jade. Jade and Raquel are facing off in the ring. They're about to come to blows. Jordan Grace comes from behind, shoves Raquel into Jade Cargill, who then spills out of the ring. Jordan rolls up Raquel Rodriguez for the win for her team, but dissension on both sides. Neither team got along here, and Grace and Cargill got the win. And then finally, Drew tries again. Third time's a charm. Out comes McIntyre. He finally makes it out here unscathed, that nobody tries to kill him, and he gets on the announce table and he cuts his promo, finally getting a chance to address CM Punk and Roman Reigns' promo from Monday. And he calls Punk a tattooed sociopath, and he's like, no wonder you picked him, Roman, because without your Samoan army, I'd kill you. I'd fucking kill you. And so, he's like, it's not so much that you insulted me, but, it's what you said about this title. It's what you said about this brand. And he's right. That's what I talked about a little bit on Monday, is that Drew is carrying, the prize title. The other one, the one that's going to main event night 2, has only been in existence for like 2 years. And I think that's good, because you should try to elevate that belt as an equal title. And WWE did a good job of that 20 or so years ago with bringing the Big Gold up to that same level. The Big Gold main evented the 20th WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden. WWE's title wasn't on the line in the 20th anniversary of WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden. WCW's was, and that was always so weird to me. But one thing that it did and helped do was make that title as big, if not bigger, than the WWE Championship. So you should eventually have a mega match like this for that title, and that is this match, Punk and Roman Reigns. But Drew's belt still should be, essentially the most prized possession. So, he basically stuck up for the brand and the title that Punk and Roman so casually threw dirt on Monday night. So he finally gets all that out, and then as he's leaving, he is interrupted for a third and final time. Luckily not attacked. He's interrupted by Trick Williams, who comes out, of course. Great reaction from the audience, and his lemon pepper steppers and all that stuff, and talks a little bit of smack, and Drew basically is like, well, if you ever do this again, I'll kill you, and walks away. And luckily Drew avoided getting beat down this time. And then in the main event of SmackDown last night, an Elimination Chamber qualifier, Randy Orton defeated Aleister Black and Solo Sikoa to qualify. RK to Solo for the win. Really cool to see Randy Orton and Aleister Black in the ring together. Plus, they had a backstage interaction. So some fans thought that maybe that could lead to Orton and Black at WrestleMania, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be Orton and Gunther, unless WWE shuffles some stuff around. because Orton is on SmackDown, Gunther is on Raw. Neither guy has anybody that they're feuding with right now, and I do like on WrestleMania, in a lot of years, you do kind of get that interpromotional thing, the Batista and Umaga match. Remember? The Batista and Umaga match? So that's what I think Orton and Gunther should be. They should be the Batista and Umaga match. Only it's also Legend Killer versus Career Killer. And maybe Randy Orton will put his career on the line. I don't know, maybe somehow win. I don't know. But I kind of still feel like that's the direction they're heading in, most likely. So Orton and Black doesn't seem likely, but you never know. It could be. But Gunther and Orton doing a program would be fun because you could do it on both shows. And that might be fun. So that was your SmackDown from last night. Pretty decent show. Not too many negatives to say about it. I liked a lot of what I saw, although there was a couple matches I didn't care about. For the most part, we had some good wrestling, solid main event. We got good story with Drew and Cody. You know, we got a couple of Elimination Chamber qualifiers. Great tag match there for the titles. And even though SmackDown's 3 hours and a chore to watch sometimes, last night looked to be pretty decent. So for Elimination Chamber, here's what we got. We got the men's match and the women's match. And on Monday night's Raw, this Monday, I'm assuming we're going to get the confirmation of CM Punk versus Finn Balor for the title at Elimination Chamber in the United Center. And for the men, we have Randy Orton qualifying so far. And for the women, we have Tiffany Stratton. If Ripley and Sky are in opposite qualifiers on Monday, I expect both of them to qualify. So I feel like it's going to be Tiffany, Rhea, and Io in the chamber so far for the women. And like I said, one idea I had for WrestleMania would be Bianca Belair getting into this thing as well. For the men, we've got Randy Orton in right now. I feel like Braun Breaker at the very least is going to get a qualifier. And then next week we have that big one, Cody, Jacob, Sammy. So not sure how the 6 will round out there, but that's what we have for the Elimination Chamber. And for WrestleMania, of course, we've got Punk versus Roman right now. That is the one match that we do have official that we know of for sure. And, you know, the rest of the card you can kind of predict. I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 matches possibly here that you can kind of get a general idea. Punk versus Roman Reigns, and then Drew McIntyre, his title match. It's either going to be against Cody, or it's going to be against Cody and Jacob, or it's going to be against Cody, Jacob, and Sammy. It's going to be something like that for Drew McIntyre. Braun Breaker is probably going to face the Masked Man. Randy Orton, like we said, could possibly face Gunther. Obafemi could possibly face Brock. And I think we could get, as long as he's healthy, Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio. I think Dominic Mysterio might play a role in Finn Balor's loss at Elimination Chamber. Maybe Dominic comes out, maybe he accidentally screws Balor or something, or turns on him. Balor loses to Punk, and then you got Balor and Dom for the title at WrestleMania. You could do something like that. Liv Morgan at this point, I feel like, would face Stephanie Vaquer, and whoever Jade Cargill faces, I don't know either, but I think Bianca Belair would be a lot of fun if she's healthy. And I pitched last week, you know, maybe Bianca returning as a babyface, qualifying for the chamber and then winning the chamber. And then when Jade comes out to congratulate her friend and say, hey, I guess we got a fight at WrestleMania, Bianca turns on her and turns heel. And now you got Bianca versus Jade, babyface versus heel match at WrestleMania. You got this new character, this new heel Bianca, and she beats Jade for the title at WrestleMania. That's the way I would love to see it go. But a lot of things hinge on that. Number one, Bianca's got to be healthy. And number two, WWE has to want to do that. And both could be untrue. So we don't know. Also, I think maybe Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky, like we've been talking about, could also be something we see at WrestleMania. And maybe the Bellas win the tag team titles, or they're involved in a tag team title match of some kind at WrestleMania. That's kind of what I got. All right. We just have Dynamite to talk about, and then we will visit the chat. I know there's super chats going off in there that I need to address, and we'll talk all about it here in just a couple of seconds. So just hang tight, and I'm sorry if we are going to tread a little bit into collision. Wednesday's Dynamite was a fun one. Holy crap. Squash of a lifetime in the main event. But it was a pretty good show overall. We had some good wrestling on the show. We have Grand Slam Australia coming up on Valentine's Day. I got to check the start time on that. I meant to do that to see if I'm going to be around to watch it, because that's a night I really should not take off from work. It's Valentine's Day. It's usually busy. I need to be there even though I don't want to be. But it's probably not even airing at night. It's probably airing in the morning or some shit. I don't even know the time difference from where I'm at in San Diego and Australia, so if anybody wants to throw the start times there. But that's what they got coming up on the 14th, and then a month later, they've got Revolution, which I may actually be attending, just not sure yet, in LA at Crypto. So they've got some shows that they're setting up for, and I enjoyed a lot of what we saw on the show, too. So it opened up with the Callis family. They defeated the Death Riders. This was a 6-man, Takeshita pinning Garcia in that one. It is hard to get used to the Death Riders kind of playing the role of baby faces here. It's weird, even though they're not really baby faces. I don't know what's going on with them, but they're a little weird to watch right now. But I'm liking that mixed tag that we're going to see. Orange Cassidy and Tony Storm, they had a little warm-up match on Dynamite where they beat, I don't know who they were, maybe a couple of jobbers or indie wrestlers. I didn't know them. But they're going to be facing Yuta and Shafir at Grand Slam in a hair match. And I loved seeing Tony out there in the denim jumpsuit or whatever, or the denim romper or whatever they're called. And after the match, they both seem a little bit nervous about losing their hair, because I guess both members of the team have to shave their heads. And Storm said she would look like an angry penis or something else. What else did she say she would look like? It was unpleasant, whatever it was. An unwashed potato. I don't know what the fuck. But Yuta and Marina, Marina's going to be bald. I feel like Yuta and Marina are going to lose this, but we got a hair match coming up in Australia, and Storm and Cassidy are a little nervous. Darby Allin was just out on a nice little ride on a skateboard. Car pulls up. Clark Connors and Gabe Kidd jump out, attack him, beat the shit out of him, throw him in the trunk, drive him out to the middle of the desert, and leave him for dead. That's actually what happened on Dynamite. So Darby, he's probably still wandering around out there. So if any of y'all want to head out there around the desert and just get, like a bullhorn or something, Darby, and see where he is, he'll probably crawl out of somewhere under a rock or something. He's probably trying to get some shade out there. So somebody, please go rescue Darby Allin. And apparently Clark Connors, I think he's signed with AEW or is about to. He was on the show, and he was a recent free agent leaving New Japan, and I guess AEW is where he's going to be. Hangman Page, he defeated Mark Davis. I really like the online comparison I saw on social media. I don't know who said it, but compared Mark Davis to Dr. Death, Steve Williams, only better. I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with that, to be honest. Because I watched Dr. Death, and Mark Davis resembles him a lot in size, and in terms of athletically what he can do in the ring, he's every bit as good as Dr. Death, for sure. So I like that comparison. They are very similar. Man, the Andrade and Kenny Omega match was something. This was great. So the winner of this match is going to move on to face Hangman Page at Grand Slam, and the winner of that match is the new #1 contender for the AEW title. So Andrade and Kenny is finally happening now. We're getting that, and it was really good. This match was fun. Not only is it good to see Andrade, wrestling the best, doing his best work, I should say, that we've seen in years, in between the WWE and AEW hot potatoing that he's been doing. Best work of his career. Kenny looked to be in top form as well. This match was just fun. I love when we just get these fun TV matches. WWE hit us with a solid tag last night with the women. This one was really fun on Wednesday, and I enjoyed seeing Andrade get the win, because Swerve was out there trying to help out to, wrestle the screwdriver away. The Callis family's out there fucking around, and Swerve's out there really trying to help, but he really causes a distraction, which allows Andrade to low blow Kenny and then hit him with his finisher and beat him. And then after the match, Kenny is a little bit upset with Swerve. They're arguing and they need to be separated. So Swerve and Kenny is a match that I really like the sound of. I don't know if they'll try to squeeze that into Grand Slam or not, because we already have a bunch of matches, but that could be a really great Revolution match. And I am eyeballing a couple of ringside seats right now, and I'm hesitant to pull the trigger. I don't know. don't know. Elizabeth, we got to figure out her surgery and stuff too, because there's a strike, so her surgery got postponed. So now we're not sure if the new date is actually going to happen or if it might happen sooner. So it's really hard to commit to this show. But we do want to go, and if we can, we're going to be going to Revolution in Los Angeles. So Kenny goes down there to Andrade, and then we had our first of 2 eliminators. So if you're not a fan of beating champions, this show was not for you, because Penelope Ford and Megan Bain, who I guess are called Mega Bad now, they defeated the Babes of Wrath in an eliminator. So they're going to get a tag team title match now at Grand Slam. So champions beat. Then our friend Ricochet, we talked about him earlier on in all his WWE tweets. He took on Jack Perry in a national championship match. Beat him. The Bucks were out there to take out the Gates of Agony, who were out there trying to interfere, but Ricochet had laid the title belt, I think like on the second turnbuckle in the corner, and smashes Perry's head into it, or Perry's just rammed into the belt in the corner. He's immediately out. Ricochet picks him up, hits him with the vertigo for the win there, and retains the title. And then in the main event, you see it right there on your screen. This was tremendous. I love stuff like this. This is, I was one of the few fans that loved the Goldberg and Brock match from 2016, even though I can't stand Goldberg, and I have much more respect for Brock in terms of what he can do athletically, and I always thought Brock was so much better than Goldberg, and Goldberg hadn't been in the ring in God knows how long, and I didn't even care that he was back. I didn't even like him, but yet the way that match went down and the shock, you're like, holy fuck, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. That was a squash you weren't expecting. You need to be smacked in the face with like that sometimes. It's good for us. Don't worry about overanalyzing it. I remember when Brock went down to Goldberg like that. They're like, oh my God, he beat the streak. How could you do that to the guy that beat the streak? I'm like, just live in the moment and shut up. Like this, like who gives a fuck about all that? Like, don't immediately turn analytical on it. Like you gotta like appreciate these moments for what they are when we get them, because you don't often get them. And, Survivor Series, 2016 is much different than a Dynamite held in a theater. I understand that. But in terms of the level of shock that we got, those type of matches remind me of each other. And MJF comes out there. This is an eliminator match, by the way. It was set up the previous week. And if Brody King beats MJF, he gets a championship match at Grand Slam. So Brody King is out first. MJF comes out next. He gets up on the apron and he immediately turns around to the fans, and who are, by the way, I guess we should bring up the fuck ice chants as well, which I thought was great. But MJF, when he's out there yelling at the fans, Brody King, who's already done this to him once before, comes right up from behind. We saw this on Monday night with Gunther and Dragon Lee. MJF's on the apron with his back turned. Brody King comes in, starts choking MJF. He immediately goes limp and he's hanging him. He drops him to the floor. Boom, like a cat. This monster Brody Lee is out there, lifts up MJF like a fucking rag doll, tosses him in the ring. Bell rings. MJF is in the corner. Brody hits the cannonball, immediately picks him up, gonzo bomb, and pins him like a bitch in the middle in like 10 seconds. Squash of a lifetime. Destroys him. Absolutely destroys him. And now he gets a championship match. Now, will he win this championship match at Grand Slam? I kind of hope that he does. Usually in situations like this, you wouldn't, but this was a squash. He just destroyed Max here. And I would do it if I'm Tony Khan. And it's a point of criticism I sometimes have about both companies. Triple H, and Tony Khan both. Sometimes I feel like they have an opportunity to do something really fun or something that'll really capture the fans' attention, and they opt not to do it. And sometimes they might know better. Sometimes, it might have been a good idea. And if I'm Tony Khan right now and I see the reaction, and plus there's the other side of that coin. There's a lot of the stuff going on right now in the country with the ice and, all of that. And Brody King is very anti-ice. We've had, fuck ice chants, on Dynamite. And, you got to tread a fine line there of saying, okay, I don't want to, if I'm a Tony Khan, I don't want to try to profit or build a character off of so much pain and suffering and evil that's going on, but if you frame it the right way and you try to, you try to do it to send a message or, in that way, maybe you could really get a bubbling of support here for Brody King, because WWE, Triple H is standing next to Trump, so if you're a fan of that, I don't want to hear anybody say AEW should keep politics out of wrestling. Tell that to the other fucking company. So one thing about any sort of political messages that you might see on AEW, you can't say they should keep politics out of wrestling. That just means you don't like what they said. That's all that translates to. So you need to keep that energy for both companies. If that's the way it would be, if it was up to me, I would prefer politics to stay out of wrestling completely. But WWE has proven that to be impossible. So if AEW wants to be on the other side of that coin, let them. And Brody King has a hell of a lot of support. I think most audiences in most cities, in most arenas, are going to be pro Brody with that message. And so, you got WrestleMania season here in WWE. If I'm Tony Khan, I'm like, I'm going to make a loud noise. Sometimes as fans, we need a loud noise. We need matches like this to get slapped in the face with. And I don't think Brody King winning the AEW championship was in AEW's immediate creative plans, but why not pivot? Sometimes you got to listen to the audience or capitalize on saying, oh, this might be an opportunity here. And I think if you gave Brody King like maybe a brief or an even not so brief AEW title run right smack dab in the middle of Mania season, you would be making enough noise to, capture some of that attention. We've got, while WWE as their 2-night extravaganza, this MAGA company, we've got this guy, spreading this message, and he's our champion, and he's a huge badass monster who could physically measure up to anybody across the entire wrestling world pretty much. So even if it wasn't in their immediate plans, I might pull the fucking trigger, man. It sucks that his title match is in Australia Grand Slam at a weird time. I'd try to do it here at Crypto or something, or do it on Dynamite. I would actually think about doing it, but based on the fact that we've got Andrade and Hangman in that number one contenders match, it feels like the Revolution match is going to be MJF versus one of those guys. So they're probably not going to put the title on Brody King, but they should think about it. They should consider it and, give us a run, like I think of the Mankind run in 99 or, just give us a run that's fun, that's different, that maybe we weren't expecting, and see if you can build yourself a star here. That's what Tony Khan's got to do. He's got to get somebody really on the map. Everybody likes MJF and respects the in-ring ability of Will Ospreay and stuff, but you need that guy that, that the fans are, everybody barks at Brody. And I think he can really get the entire arena going sometimes with his energy and with his presence and that type of thing. And that's the type of person you want. You should try to capitalize on this. Don't say, oh, wait, we'll push him next year or whatever. Do it now. This is when he's getting the most buzz. And this is when he just had the squash of a lifetime. Have him squash MJF again. Smash this monster over and just have some fun. Do something that we weren't expecting and make yourself another top star now, a top contender. Now you got Brody King, who's now a former AEW champion. He should essentially be at least in the mix now based on his dominance. I would consider doing it. So we'll see. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it would be fun if it did. So Brody now officially, after squashing MJF, gets the title match in a couple of weeks or in 1 week. I guess it's 1 week from today. It's Valentine's Day. Yeah, next Saturday. So I got to see what time that starts to figure out how we're going to do a podcast that day. And we might even have to do a podcast. We might have to do a doubleheader on the 15th, do a podcast in the afternoon and watch along at night. I'm not sure yet. I'll figure all that out in the next couple of days. Here's what we have for Grand Slam on the 14th. Hangman versus Andrade. Winner gets a shot at the title at Revolution. We've got Tony Storm and Orange Cassidy versus Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir in a hair match. You got Bane and Ford versus Babes of Wrath. Moxley versus Takeshita for the Continental title. And MJF versus Brody King for the AEW title. Those are the 5 matches that we have so far for Australia. Collision just started 7 minutes ago. Here's what's on tap. Ciampa defending the title against Strong and Claudio Castagnoli in a three-way. That's fun. Stat and MJF are going to speak. We got Gates of Agony and the Bucks winner advanced to a number one contenders match on Dynamite. Rascals, Kingston and Ortiz, they're taking on the Grizzleds along with Big Bill and Brian Keith. Tekla is in action. Skyflight versus Death Riders. Kevin Knight versus Scorpio Sky. And Mina Shirakawa versus, I believe, Viva Van. Viva Van. So anyway, that's what's going on Collision, and that show has already began to air, and we are 7 minutes into that. We are 7 minutes overdue, over our curfew, and I have not even answered anything in the chat yet. So that's what we're going to do now that the notes are over. Scroll way back, way back. That's kind of the way I like to do it now on the podcasts. I should be taking breaks and answering super chats in between, but I kind of like to answer them at the end on the podcast days. But I want to pull up the master list real quick here because one thing I do not want to do is miss somebody's. I have them all here. I just want to make sure I'm answering the first one first. There we are. There we go. Yep, Ryan, it was you. Just want to make sure I had the right one. Ryan's got 5 for us. Thanks, bro. AJ was challenging for the WWE title just 2 months after his debut. He had some fun matches with Roman in 2016. Yeah, and then he won it, later on in the year? Didn't he win it, did they used to do Backlash in, September or something? Why do I think it was Backlash? I always remember, when I do my thumbnails for my reviews and stuff, and I remember, was it Backlash that he won the title? Beat Ambrose, right? Dean Ambrose? But just the way he was treated was incredible. Never thought WWE had it in him to treat somebody who wasn't their own like that. It was refreshing. Just like a cold beverage. Ryan's got 10 more. I hated my last job, but I'm not going to tell my other coworkers how to feel about their own situation. What about Ricochet's coworkers in AEW that might feel about it like he feels about WWE? Right. Yeah, I feel the same way. Even when I left that job that I hated, I still had friends that stayed there, and worked there and were perfectly fine, or, weren't going out of their minds or anything. So I'm certainly never going to tell them how to feel. But there probably are a lot of people, and that's one of the things that Ricochet said in one of his tweets. He said there's a lot of people that feel the same way. Yeah, they're just not running their mouths, Ricochet, so maybe you shouldn't either. I don't know. But you do you. I'm not sure. I wouldn't, I don't care about his trolling, but sometimes I worry about, a tweet causing you problems and bringing heat on you for no reason, Gabriel, thank you for the 5, bro. How's life? How's Elizabeth doing? Hope all is well. We are doing great. Elizabeth had her surgery scheduled for this past Tuesday, but there is a nurses' strike going on that has postponed it. So they postponed her surgery 2 months. She was pretty bummed. We have a feeling it's going to get done before then. They postponed it out 2 months, assuming the strike will be resolved way before then. But she was supposed to be already in recovery by now, and now she has to wait. So full reconstructive knee surgery currently set for April 8th. That's why it's hard to commit to Revolution in LA, because if they tell us the surgery's earlier, we can't go if it's the day before, the show or whatever. So she's got to be allowed some recovery time. So all that's kind of hinging on it. But other than that, life is wonderful. And we were very lucky here this week in San Diego. It was hot as hell while the rest of the country is getting polar vortexed or whatever. We're just chilling here with our 80 degrees. It's pretty nice. Very little to complain about, Gabriel. Thanks for being here as always, bro. Mike Witt, thanks for the 10, man. Hey, Greg and chat, watching that MJF Brody match and hearing that chant before the match, I laughed so hard. Can you imagine Hunter's face if WWE fans would have done that for a TV show? I wish they would. I wish they would. Good fuck ice chant will be kind of nice. But you're going to hear that a lot, I'm sure. But that was funny. That was good stuff. I loved the squash. I loved the chant. I loved everything about that. It was it's what we need. We need to just get punched in the face with a surprising finish every now and then, wake you up. It's like getting splashed with cold water in your face. Just get your juices flowing a little bit. Sometimes our juices just lay stagnant. Our juices are just laying there, not juicing. So sometimes juices need to flow. You know what I mean? 10 more from Mike. Do you know if it's possible? Or do you know if it's at all possible, but if he still wants to work with the company, a tag match between Bad Bunny and Priest versus the Paul brothers might be fun. Well, that was my question, too. We heard the report from Alvarez this week that Bunny, we should expect to see him back sooner rather than later, but I wasn't sure if Bunny wanted to do business or vice versa. WWE might not want to do business with him. He might not want to do business with them, or there might be enough respect there to where they're going to respect each other's political stances and just leave it alone, do business. That's what I would like to see happen. So if we talked about this earlier, if he did come in, Priest against the Paul brothers, that would be an interesting match, but you'd probably have to get Logan Paul out of the vision in order to do that somehow. And we have heard reports that Jake Paul could possibly be coming into the WWE too. I don't care about these two yahoos at all, but they might both be there now. So if that is what they did, I could kind of maybe see that. Bad Bunny and Priest versus both Pauls. God, who do you put over in that? Heels up. Heels up. Jelly Roll, what an idiot. Oh, my God. But yeah, possibly. I mean, if Bad Bunny is going to come back in and the reports are true and we should see him soon, that means he's going to do something. So what is he going to do? Who's he going to face if he gets a Mania match? And we'll see. 5 more from Mike. I still think we're getting a Jacob, Cody, Drew match. Or Jacob, Drew, Cody, triple threat Hell in the Cell on night 1's main event to blow off this feud. Just a gut feeling. Yeah, Hell in the Cell would be fine with me. If they did that. That would add a little bit more spice to that main event. Because just a straight up 3-way, how great can that be? They did that last year in the night 1 main event. We had a 3-way. It was Punk and Roman and Seth. So they do the same thing again. It's essentially the same match, only this time there's a title on the line. You put a cage around these fools. Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for Hell in the Cell, main event, night 1. Sure. Juliet, thanks for the 2. Miss you. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. We were all talking before you showed up here. We were all like sharing a good cry together. Like, we missed Juliet. And some of us, like Doug Unfunny and Jordan and Daniel and Ben, man, they were really struggling. Waterworks, sobbing uncontrollably over the absence of the Juliet. Oh, man, it was emotional. It was emotional, I'm not going to lie. Mike Witt, thanks for the 10, bro. Not mad about the War Raiders loss at all. I am still not too happy about Finn and Carmelo not being in the Rumble, but the Miz and La Parka are in it. Got it. Yeah, who knows? Finn and Melo. Maybe there's more than meets the eye there, because was Finn in Saudi Arabia? That's one question I want answered, because if Balor was not in Saudi Arabia, he might have just not wanted to go. And so that was just on TV, that was the explanation. The Rumble's full. Maybe he requested, can I just skip this one or whatever? And they're like, yeah, sure. Or if he's like, hey, if I'm not going to be booked, can I just not go? But if Balor made the trip and he was just there for fun, that kind of sucks. Yeah, Brody and Bandito both had good matches with MJF on TV recently. I did see that, Juliet. Some senator wants Tony Khan to bring Bad Bunny into AEW because they probably don't even know that Bad Bunny already works with WWE. And a lot of the news outlets that don't know anything about pro wrestling, they were running that story about the wrestling crowd, with the fuck ice chants. And they're talking about something that they kind of don't know anything about. They took that and they saw, plus that was a theater that Dynamite ran in, just, less than 2,000 people were there. And so I think stories were kind of running with this headline like, oh, the country got pro wrestling in the divorce, or the left got pro wrestling in the divorce. And I don't think that's necessarily true. We've seen plenty of people on both sides in the audience, but it was just this specific audience. It might depend what city you're in, where you're at, what's going on, who's in the ring, perhaps. A lot of that factors in, and they don't really understand the landscape of pro wrestling and might not even know, how heavily involved WWE is with the current administration, and they might take one chant from an AEW show is pro wrestling fans hate ice. A lot of them do. A lot of us do, but certainly not all of them do. I mean, we all should. I think any sane person would, but not everybody's sane. So we'll see how the Bad Bunny stuff plays out. And if he does, in fact, show back up on WWE. 10 more from Mike. Just imagine Greg and Elizabeth's reaction at Revolution when Max beats Hangman and the lights go dark and they come back on and AJ is in the ring to confront Max. That would be great. I would love to see AJ Styles in an AEW ring. And if I was there for it, that would be tremendous. Hell yeah. 5 more from Ryan. Brock ran through the Hardys. That's right. It was Rikishi. Hardys, Rikishi, Test, RVD, Flair, Hogan, and The Rock in his first few months. War Raiders will be fine. That was my point. And I was like, when Brock first came in, I swear, he was running in there destroying a bunch of people. It was Rikishi that I was thinking of, not Albert. I was thinking it was A-Train or whatever, that he did that crazy. And I'm sure he's hit A-Train with a F5, and I think there is a gnarly one that folded A-Train up pretty hard. But I was thinking of when he first came in, it was Rikishi that he did that too, not A-Train. So yeah, and then not to mention he had matches with RVD, killed him, wiped Hogan's blood across his chest. So the outrage about the War Raiders, I think if you're mad about that, you don't have any frame of reference. You have nothing. You don't know what you're talking about. Like I understand if you're fans of theirs, you didn't really like to see that happen to them, but this is wrestling, man. This is a very common way that monsters are introduced. Did you start watching yesterday? Like, I don't understand, some of the outrage, even from people that I like and respect. Sometimes I'm like, why are we mad about this? Come on. You're smarter than that. But I think that's just fans' instinct to be immediately analytical or what can I find wrong with this? It's like, it's just like, it's like a habit. It's how we've evolved. And I really, if I'm ever going to send any message, and I'm going to use, what limited reach I have in the wrestling community to spread any message, is going to be, don't be like that. Don't be like that. Because everybody else is like that. Don't be like everybody else. Just think for yourself and just don't go along with what everybody else is programmed to say and do. And I think wrestling has so much of that I always, just kind of on principle, try to at least look at the other side. Even if I'm going to agree, before I agree, I'm like, let's just make sure that we're not just hastily, rushing into this here. And with the War Raider stuff, the first thing I thought about was Brock. And I'm like, and if they are building to Brock and Oba, then bringing Oba in the very same way you brought Brock in and having him squash some stars, sometimes just come out and beat them up for no reason, sometimes 2 at a time, then that's what you do. Because it might remind fans of how Brock came in, and then boom, you got this natural matchup here. So when Oba did that to the War Raiders, the first thing that came to mind was Brock 02, not, the War Raiders were done wrong. Reading some more non-super chats. Jordan, thank you so much. I don't know if I'm that good. I appreciate the kind words. This is a great wrestling pod. Appreciate the wide coverage and insights. And that background is worthy of ESPN. It could be my favorite in the IWC. Yeah, this is kind of new. And I actually threw this together very crudely because when I moved into this place here a few months back, I needed to be live soon. So I spent just kind of one day. I went to Home Depot, got a couple pieces of wood, built myself a little makeshift shelf right there with some brackets and some screws and put some LED lights on them. And I put all my shit, my wrestling collectibles in storage, but kind of grabbed a few things in a box and said, this stuff would be nice for the shelf, and threw it up there. And it's been mostly unchanged for the last few months, but I might change it up a little bit as we go. But thank you for that. Thank you for that. ESPN worthy. I don't know. People say ESPN's like not good anymore. When I was a kid, they were all the rage. Sports Center every morning before I went to school. Sports Center when I came home. Sports Center at night. That was all ESPN. Mike Witt, thanks for the 5. I'm still waiting for the eventual confrontation of Dragunov and Gunther on the main roster. Maybe that could be a WrestleMania match as well. Dragunov and Gunther, but there's no title on the line. There's nothing else going on there. I'm not sure if it's worthy yet. in terms of how you build it and whatnot. Gunther and Orton seems like the better match, at least right now. But someday we're going to get that. They'll wind up on the same roster. The next time WWE decides to do any sort of a draft or a roster moves or shakeups, anything like that, you can pair them together on the same roster, and then it's only a matter of time before their paths cross and magic happens. Ryan, any chance you think the women can main event night one? Not this year. I don't. I'm not against at all them main eventing either night, even night two, but you have to have a match. You can't just put one out there. And Liv and Stephanie is not a main event match. Bianca and Jade might be, but if that were to happen, they're going to have to build it in a very, very short amount of time. And it's not something that you've kind of been building towards. It's not like a bloodline long angle here between these two that's now going to, hit this climax point at WrestleMania. And it's almost like you can't not put it in the main event. Even with them, I don't think they'd be there because Bianca's going to, even if this match happens, this imaginary match that I'm concocting in my head with Bianca coming back, I don't know if there would be enough time, but it sure would be intriguing, especially if she turned heel. If she was a babyface, forget it. But if she turned heel, I could make a case for it, sure, at least night one. But I'd say this year, probably not. You have to have a match you have to just build a match. You have to have a women's equivalent of Punk and Roman, which at this point, what would it be? Probably, if you get to next year, here's one candidate for a potential WrestleMania main event. Two candidates. Number one, Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. Whenever that match one-on-one can go down for a championship, main event of WrestleMania, absolutely. Also, Rhea Ripley and Stephanie Vaquer. I think Ripley and Stephanie would be a really fun WrestleMania main event as well, but Bianca and Ripley seems like the more natural one. So maybe next year, what I would try to do, if my idea comes true and this dream I have comes true and Bianca returns as a heel and she wins the title over there and she has this run as a heel, I would try to build to her and Ripley next year at WrestleMania. Unfortunately, that's going to be a Saudi Arabia match, but it could be. But one thing you have to remember, Rock and Roman are probably going to main event night two. So that means neither men's world championship would main event either night. So I don't think it's possible this year. And if the reports are to be believed, since The Rock might be paid to wrestle his final match ever next year at WrestleMania, that's going to be the night two main event, which means you'd almost have to put one of the men's world titles as the night one main event if Rock and Roman is main event of night two. So I feel like the women would be out for next year too. So I feel like the women are a minimum of 3 years away from a main event at WrestleMania. That sucks. Trust me, it's not, I don't want it to be that way, but that's the way I feel like it is. So we just gotta build for those big matches. And I think Ripley and Vaquer, Ripley and Belair, I don't know who else. Liv and Tiffany could be one. Cargill and Rodriguez, I think, could be one. If you built it right and got both women over. So, you got some intriguing matches there. Cargill, or I'm sorry, maybe Ripley and Lash Legend, or, there's lots of possibilities there. Bring back Becky and Charlotte, get them into each other's business again. Maybe. So we will see. Becky and AJ Lee for the IC. I forgot to add that to my WrestleMania match list. Good point. So that brings the total probably up to about 11 matches. And if my matches are right, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There would be 5 women's matches out of the 11 total that I have so far. So that would be pretty good representation for the women at WrestleMania. Yeah, maybe Saudi Arabia wouldn't even want a women's main event. That is very, very possible as well for next year. So yeah, they're a couple of years away from that being a reality, I think, unfortunately. So All right on. Well, this was, nearly a 3-hour podcast, and Collision is live right now. It's been going on for half an hour, so hopefully the show is good and you're enjoying it. And I want to thank you guys for hanging out here with us this afternoon and this evening. I'll go ahead here in the next few minutes and push out this podcast to this episode to the podcast feed. So if you want to listen via the podcast sites, you can do that. And as a reminder, no watch along tomorrow because it is Super Bowl, but I will plan on being here Monday night after Raw since we are going to have some Elimination Chamber news. Before I get out of here, I'll answer this last super chat from Mike. Thank you for all the super chats tonight, my friend. AJ versus Becky at Mania. How about Natty added to that match? Is it just me, or does it seem gross watching WWE in Saudi Arabia? Seems so greedy watching them in Saudi every time. Yeah, it's not a great feeling. We're actually overdue for another charity stream next, maybe one of the watch-alongs this year. If we do one, we'll do a charity donation for that one. But what can we do about it? WWE is not the only entity that does business with Saudi Arabia. A lot of people do. You got golf, you got comedians over there. It's like, what can you fucking do? I mean, as a fan, if I was a fan without YouTube, I honestly don't know how much of the product I would follow or how gross I would find it, or if I would just completely want to turn it off or not. But YouTube kind of makes it an obligation. But I'd really like to know if I would just probably give up on it altogether because of the association. I don't know. Oh, yeah, that's another good possible match. Tiffany Stratton versus Chelsea Green, because they had an interaction on SmackDown last night. That's right. So Chelsea, Tiffany, U.S. title at Mania. Yeah, because Tiffany probably will not be in a title match. But we don't know who Jade is going to be facing. Like I said, I'm really hoping it's Bianca, but let's say it's not. Who is it? That's what I want to know. If it ain't Bianca, who? I hope not who. Jim Neidhart with the mask on from 1996. I hope it's not that who. Oh, man. Anyway, I'm going to get up out of here now. If anybody hasn't hit the thumbs up button or the like button for me, if you don't mind doing that on your way out, I would appreciate it. Have a great day tomorrow. Enjoy the Super Bowl. I hope your team wins. I hope you watch the halftime show you want to watch. And I will be catching you guys on Monday night for the Raw review. Have a great rest of your Saturday, and I'll catch you soon. Peace.